Act 1, Part 1 of The Hoodoo by Walter Ben Hare. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Characters:
Brighton Early, about to be married. Read by Greg Giordano.
Billy Jackson, the Heartbreaker. Read by Tomas Peter.
Professor Solomon Spiggot, an authority on Egypt. Read by Todd.
ToddHWHemachus Spiggot, his son, aged 17. Read by Adrian Stephens.
Mr. Malachi Meek, a lively old gentleman of 69. Read by Alan Mapstone.
Mr. Dunn, the burglar. Read by Andrew Gaunce.
Miss Amy Lee, about to be married. Read by Rina Zelen SouppaMrs.
Mrs. Perrington-Shine, her aunt and Mr. Meek's daughter. Read by M. Lee.
Gwendolyn Perrington-Shine, who does just as Mamma says. Read by Jemima Corcoran.
Dodo de Graft, the Dazzling Daisy. Read by Jenn BrodaMrs.
Mrs. Ima Clinger, the Fascinating Young Widow. Read by Krista ZaleskiAngelina.
Angelina, her angel child, aged 8. Read by Carol Sutton.
Miss Doris Ruffles, Amy's Maid of Honor. Read by Marie Christian.
Mrs. Semiramis Spiggot, the mother of 7. Read by
SoniaEupepsia Spiggot, her daughter, aged 16. Read by SaraHaleMiss
Longnecker, a public school teacher. Read by Lindsay Clark.
Lulu, by name and nature. Read by T.J. Burns.
Aunt Paradise, the colored cook lady. Read by Jacqueline Tyler.
Stage directions read by Michael Max. Time 1912 in late September. Place: Mrs. Perrington-Shine's country home about 30 minutes from Philadelphia. Occasion: a house party at the Lee Early wedding. Synopsis: Act 1. The lawn at Mrs. Perrington-Shine's country home. An Egyptian wedding present. Trouble for the groom. Act 2. The library at 8 p.m. A thief in the house. Trouble for Billy Jackson, the susceptible. Act 3. The same library at 11 p.m. Trouble for the burglar. Eloped at midnight. The Hoodoo, Act 1, Part 1. Scene: a lawn. Set house rather elaborate, with steps leading to porch down left. Garden backing. Wall runs across stage at back. Arched entrance in wall at centre. Wood wings right and left, with natural boughs attached. Vines on wall with yellow paper roses. Lawn seat down left, surrounded by screen. Large tree down right, with circular seat. This tree may be omitted, and a bower of palms with seat for 2 arranged. Garden table with 2 garden chairs, up right centre. Lights all on. Bright music, maybe a wedding march to take up the curtain. Curtain rises on empty stage. After a slight pause, Lulu enters from the house down left. She stands on the steps with her arms on her hips and views the scene in a disgusted manner.
Just look at this lawn. It's not enough for 'em to be messing up the entire house with spooning in every room of it and making extra work for me. But they got to come out here and look at the moon.
Comes down centre.
It's got so I have to give this front lawn as much attention as the parlors. I hate wedding parties anyway.
Dusts.
They think that just because you get an extra tip or two, that you can do the work of 20.
Notices screen at left.
Carried out the parlor screen. It's a pity that some folks can't spoon enough in the house. Ah, and look how they've hid themselves in. Must have been afraid someone would have saw 'em. It couldn't have been the bridal couple, for they don't care. It was Billy Jackson and that widow. Or maybe it was Billy Jackson and Gwendolyn. Or Billy Jackson and Doris.
Dusts at left.
He's a wise guy, all right, and keeps the three of 'em guessing who's gonna land the prize. And I'll bet that all the time he's engaged to some girl away from here. Yes, it was him. Here's some cigarette stubs in a little pink chiffon bow. That's from the widow. Huh. No wonder he wanted the screen around him.
Crosses to right.
And this is the bridal bower. No, here's some more of Billy Jackson's cigarette stubs. And a white gauze fan. That's Gwendolyn's.
Puts fan in dress.
That must have been later in the evening.
Arranges pillows on seat at right. Aunt Paradise appears on steps. Aunt Paradise, with arms on hips.
Is they all back from their ride yet?
Not yet.
How many more is coming today, honey?
Lulu, sitting at right.
Well, there's Mr. and Mrs. Spiggot. He's a professor from somewhere in Missouri.
Poor relations.
Limps down steps to centre.
And they'll bring a whole bunch of little Spigots.
Aunt Paradise, throwing up her hands in horror.
More chillins! Great day of the trumpet! We's got one child here already, and she's most done upside the whole house. If one little angel can cause so much devilment, what's gwine happen when we gets a whole house full of little Spigots?
Sits left.
Is there any more coming?
Yes. There's a cowboy coming from Texas.
A cowboy? Great day of the trumpet! I'm gwine to give notice sure. I simply ain't gwine to cook for no cowboy. No, ma'am.
He's a friend of Mr. Early's. His picture is a dream, and he's worth a lot of money. Me for Mr. Cowboy.
Do you reckon that he'll be liberal with any of that money?
You bet he will. You can count on 10 from him for sure.
Aunt Paradise, slowly smiling.
I guess I'll stay. Who else is coming?
I think that's all. Oh, no, there's Miss Longnecker.
Miss Longnecker? How come they invite her to this wedding?
Oh, she's Amy's old school teacher.
Aunt Paradise, looking at screen.
What's that parlor screen doing out here in the front yard?
Why, Paradise, don't you know what that's out here for? Last night, everyone came out to see the moon. And when you look at the moon, you've got to look in couples. And when you look in couples, you need screens. I know.
I never yet saw a wedding that wasn't the starting point of about half a dozen other weddings. That Mr. Billy Jackson sure is a flirtatious man. He sure is.
That's the truth, Paradise. He's got 3 strings in his bow.
Aunt Paradise, counting on fingers.
Miss Gwendolyn and Miss Doris. And who else?
Why, the widow, of course.
Who that?
Mrs. Clinger. Little Angel's mama.
You don't tell me. Is she setting her cap for him, too?
Yes, her widow's cap.
And what you reckon he's in love with?
In love? Billy Jackson doesn't know what love means.
I'll sure be glad when all this here wedding doings is over. It's too much excitement for old Aunt Paradise.
Angelina appears on steps. Angelina, coming down centre.
Well, you two are taking it easy, I must say.
Lulu, rising quickly.
Ha! Little girls should be seen and not heard.
Tell it to Sweeney. Say, Aunt Paradise, where's the bunch?
Aunt Paradise, rising with difficulty.
Where's the what?
The bunch. Ma and Mr. Billy and the bride and groom and the whole sideshow.
Lulu, dusting at right.
They've gone riding.
And they didn't take me? They sneaked off. That's what they did. Sent me down to the post office to mail some letters. That's a nice way to treat me. I won't be the ring bearer in the old wedding now, so I won't. I don't care if the old ring don't never get bored.
Lulu, when you all get done cleaning, come down in the kitchen. I got something to tell you.
Limps to porch.
Something about BILLYJACKSON?
Billy Jackson. I guess I can spell Billy Jackson if I am only 8. Go on and tell her all your old secrets about Billy Jackson. I know something worth 2 of that.
That child gwanda upset this here whole house. She sure is.
Want to know what I know at Paradise? Well, I'll tell you. I saw you give those little pickaninnies that fried chicken and that angel cake last night.
Hush your talk, you. That child sure gwanda in bad. She sure is. I never give no pickaninnies nothing. The idea. Why, child, I's a sustaining member of the Daughters of Zion, I is. You all better hush your talk, or I'll have the old conjure woman take you away in her big black bag and bury you deep in the graveyard.
Skidoo to you. Tell those fairy tales to Sweeney.
Great day of the trumpet. Ain't she scandalous? That child sure gwanda in bad. She sure is.
Exit into house at left, muttering.
You ought to be ashamed to worry old Aunt Paradise so.
Is that so? Well, you look out that I don't worry you.
Ha! You don't know anything about me.
Oh, don't I?
Imitates Lulu's voice.
Mr. Jackson, how dare you kiss me? I guess that'll hold you for a while.
What? When did you hear that?
Yesterday in the hall, and if Mr. Jackson don't give me a big box of chocolates and 50 cents and a new hair ribbon of no green, I'll tell everybody what I heard and what I saw.
Lulu, coming close to her.
Oh, I'd like to shake you.
You forget yourself, and besides, you're afraid.
You'd better keep your eyes on your game, Mama, instead of on other people.
I'll tell Mama what you said.
Lulu, losing her temper and speaking loudly.
If you dare to, I'll...
Enter Mr. Malachi Meek from centre. Malachi coming down centre and speaking to Angelina, who is right centre.
Ah, good morning, little lady.
Good morning, Uncle Malachi.
Malachi, smiling.
Have you a little kiss for me this morning?
Sure I have. Have you a little quarter for me?
No, I haven't. I like little girls to kiss me for myself alone.
Try Lulu there. I ain't that kind.
Skips to porch.
Lulu's had more experience than I have.
Laughs.
Morning, Uncle Malachi.
Runs off left. Lulu, singing as she arranges pillows down right.
Nothing's worthwhile but dreams of you, dearie, my dearie.
Malachi, straightening up, looking at Lulu, putting on specs, looking again, taking out bandana handkerchief and flirting it at her quickly, then looking around to see if anyone is looking. Lulu sings all through this, but glances at him now and then coquettishly.
Lovely morning.
It is so. If you love me, don't be bashful. Take my little hand in thine. If you want a kiss, just ask me. I'm sure I won't decline.
Malachi, making a funny slide to her at right.
Good morning, my dear.
Lulu, affecting surprise.
Oh, why, it's Mr. Meek.
And how is little Lulu Wooloo this morning?
Lulu, dropping eyes bashfully.
Oh, Mr. Meek.
I had so much trouble in tying my necktie this morning. Does it look right?
You need a little more on this side.
Arranges it. He slips his arm around her waist.
Fix it pretty, little Lulu.
Why, Mr. Meek, look at your arm.
Can't. I'm looking at your eyes.
Starts to kiss her. Mrs. Perrington-Shine appears on porch. Mrs. Perrington-Shine, looking through lorgnette.
Why, Father, I'm surprised.
Yes, I'm somewhat surprised myself.
Lulu, you may go into the house. I'll speak to you later.
Comes down to centre.
He just asked me to tie his tie.
Crosses backstage to porch.
That will do.
Yes'm.
Exit in house, tossing her head.
Now, Father, what was the meaning of that?
Simplest thing in the world. She was just tying my tie.
You've been flirting with the servants.
Now, my dear Rosabella.
I shall have to discharge that girl. She's a designing creature. And to think it has come to this. You are old enough to be her grandfather.
That's just it. She's the most innocent girl in the world.
She's about as innocent as you are.
Now, Rosabella.
Don't speak to me. My own father actually flirting.
The poor little thing was only doing me a favour.
I'll discharge her at once.
You'll do nothing of the sort.
Father, you forget yourself.
It was just her sympathetic nature.
Laughter outside.
They're coming. We'll settle this matter later.
Yes, the later the better.
Down right with Mrs. Perrington-Shine. Enter Billy Jackson, Gwendolyn Perrington-Shine, and Mrs. Ima Clinger from centre, laughing and chatting. Billy, coming down right centre, close to Mrs. Perrington-Shine, but not seeing her. He is speaking to Gwendolyn, who comes down centre.
And the joke of the whole thing was that she knew he was a married man all the time.
Gwendolyn, not seeing Mrs. Perrington-Shine.
Oh, Mr. Jackson, you are so funny.
Mr. Jackson?
Billy, his face changing from smiles to sobriety, he turns slowly and faces Mrs. Perrington-Shine.
Good morning, Mrs. Shine.
Mrs. Perrington-Shine, please.
Excuse me, Mrs. Perrington-Shine.
Malachi has crossed up centre and is conversing with Mrs. Clinger in pantomime.
That must have been a very humorous story you were telling my daughter, Mr. Jackson.
Yes, indeed, Mamma. It was. It was about...
I was speaking to Mr. Jackson, Gwendolen?
Yes, it was a great story. It was about a barber named...
I trust that it was a moral story, Mr. Jackson.
Moral? Oh, yes. Yes. There was a bully moral to it. In fact, that was the best thing about it.
Gwendolen, I think you had better dress for lunch. We are expecting some other guests this morning.
Yes, Mamma.
Mrs. Perrington-Shine, crossing to porch.
Father?
Yes, Rosabella?
It's time for you to take your tonic. This raw morning air doesn't agree with you, and you know it.
Billy and Gwendolen busily engaged down right centre, talking.
I'll be there in a moment.
Don't let me keep you, dear Mr. Meek.
Father?
Coming.
Crosses to left centre, upstage.
You'll excuse me, Mrs. Clinger.
Of course. We'll resume our conversation in the conservatory right after lunch.
Right after lunch? In the conservatory?
Gwendolen?
Coming, Mamma.
Crosses to porch. Mrs. Perrington-Shine, aside to Gwendolen.
You know my feeling regarding Mr. Jackson. I hope I won't have to speak to you again.
But he's so interesting and tells such funny stories.
A mere clerk. I can't see why Brighton ever invited him to become one of the wedding party.
Sees Malachi talking to Mrs. Clinger.
Father!
Yes, Rosabella, I'm coming.
Crosses to porch.
Don't forget that you are 69.
Exit in house. Gwendolen on steps.
Goodbye, Mr. Jackson.
See you at lunch.
Malachi comes back to Mrs. Clinger. Gwendolen pausing at door, bashfully.
I enjoyed your story so much.
Wait till you hear the second chapter.
Mrs. Perrington-Shine in house.
Gwendolen!
Yes, Mamma.
Runs in left. Mrs. Clinger to Malachi.
Don't forget the conservatory.
Laughs.
Right after lunch. Over the river.
Waves his hand gaily to Mrs. Clinger and starts towards steps rapidly. Sudden twinge of rheumatism causes him to pause in agony. Then exits slowly, limping up steps and off left. Mrs. Clinger, coming down left centre.
I'm afraid Mr. Meek sometimes forgets that he is 69.
Billy, meeting her at centre.
Some ladies are fascinating enough to make Methuselah forget his age.
Mrs. Clinger, playfully striking him with crop.
Flatterer.
I've been waiting all morning to tell you that.
But you were too busy with Miss Perrington-Shine, with the accent on the shine.
She's a cute little kid, isn't she?
Yes, and so interesting. I love to hear her say, "Yes, Mama." Does she ever say anything else, Mr. Jackson?
Ah, put a poison label on that, mister. I'm just plain Billy.
Well, Billy, then.
Enter Brighton Early and Miss Amy Lee from centre. They come slowly down right, arm in arm. Billy at left.
Hello, here's the twin Cupids. Got here at last, did you? Took you half an hour to walk from the stable here.
I'm afraid I must go in, Bright. Isn't it time to dress, Ima?
I suppose so. You excuse me, won't you, Billy?
Billy. Hello. She calls him Billy.
What's the difference? Aren't we all in the same wedding party?
You needn't think that you're the whole show just because you are the groom.
I'm satisfied. I wouldn't trade places with any man on earth.
Amy, giving his arm a playful little shake.
Bright, don't be silly.
Mrs. Clinger, going on steps.
Come, Amy, let's leave them to their cigarettes. See you after lunch, Billy.
Sure thing. In the conservatory?
Oh, I forgot the conservatory. That's reserved for 69.
Laughs and exit into house left. Brighton, crossing with Amy to steps.
Hurry, dear. I'll wait right here.
It will only take me 10 minutes.
It will seem an hour.
Silly boy.
Blows a kiss at Brighton and exits into house left. Billy down right.
I caught that one, Bright.
Sits.
Yes, you did.
Comes to right intermediate exit and sits.
Billy, old man, do you know that I'm the happiest fellow in the world? The wide, wide world.
Billy, sprawling and smoking cigarette.
That's what they all say.
They? Who?
Oh, you know, those who are engaged to know that sort of thing.
Every time I see Amy, I find something new to adore about her. I never knew what it meant to love a girl till now.
Cut the comedy and remember whom you're talking to.
I mean real, serious love. Oh, of course there have been other girls.
Yes, there have been other girls.
But never another one like Amy. Amy Lee. Why, her very name's poetry.
Billy, to audience.
And he used to be the star fullback of the state.
And her style. Billy, did you ever notice Amy's style? I always did adore that tender, wistful style.
I remember when you adored quite another style.
Oh? What's the use of talking about old times?
Dodo was a pretty little thing, wasn't she?
You're right, Billy, she was. And she had the dreamiest eyes, and the freshest lips, shaped like a Cupid's bow. And say, Billy, do you remember how her hair used to curl over her ears? And the walks down by the lake? And the little suppers after the theater? And the cute, careless little ways of her when she was on the stage? Doe was some girl. But nothing to be compared to Amy. You see, I'm going to marry Amy.
How soft you used to be about Dodo. You used to say that your love was like an ocean with a kiss on every wave.
Did I say that?
You know you did.
That's pretty good. I'll have to hand it to Amy.
I wonder if Doe is still in St. Paul.
I suppose so. The last I heard, she was playing leads with the Cummerson stock. The matinee girls rave over her.
Ever hear from her?
Oh, of course not. That's a nice question to put to me.
I beg your pardon. But when one's love is like an ocean with a kiss on every wave, you know.
Even the ocean creeps out at low tide.
And the poor little waves snuggle down and go to sleep.
Don't be so sentimental.
Rises.
We better dress for lunch.
Billy, rising.
What time is it?
Brighton, feeling in his pocket.
Oh, by Jove.
What is it?
My watch. It's gone. I know I had it this morning.
Searches pockets and looks round stage. Billy, searching.
Probably you lost it while riding.
I'll have the groom look for it.
You don't suppose anyone touched you for it, do you?
Brighton, hesitatingly.
No.
Blamed queer. You know, I missed my pearl crop this morning.
That's so. Funny, isn't it?
Well, not so blamed funny.
No, but it's a coincidence. I'll have Riley saddle the filly, and See if I can find it on the road. Come along?
Goes up left.
No, I'll wait here.
I'd hate to lose that watch.
Exit centre to left.
Poor old Bright. He'll lose his head next. No, he can't do that. He's lost it already. A man about to be married doesn't know whether he's alive or dead. Poor old Bright.
Enter Miss Doris Ruffles, centre, with a basket full of daisies. Doris, coming down centre, humming a song. She sees Billy.
Hello, Billy.
Billy, coming to her.
Hello, Angel Cake. How's the headache?
I didn't have a headache. That was a bluff. I didn't care to ride.
What? Didn't care to ride? With me?
With you and Gwendolyn and Mrs. Clinger and Amy. This wedding party has so many girls in it that it looks like a suffragettes convention.
The more the merrier.
Wait till some more men come. Then you'll find that there are other birdies on Luella's hat.
I hope that it will make any difference between us, no matter how many men come.
Wait and see. You've been mighty attentive to Gwendolyn, to say nothing of Mrs. Clinger. Mrs. Ima Clinger. I'm a Clinger. Pretty name, isn't it?
Now, Doris, you know I think of no one else but you.
I know you do.
He tries to take her hand.
That is, when I'm here.
Shakes her forefinger at him.
Billy Jackson, you're a flirt. Prisoner at the bar, are you guilty or not guilty?
Billy, holding up left hand.
Not guilty, Your Honor.
Doris, turning away.
Not that it makes any difference to me. Of course not. I'm used to flirts. But poor little Gwendolyn and poor little Mrs. Clinger. It's lucky for us that this party lasts only 3 days.
That's the way with every good thing in life. But you're going to let me come to Columbus and see you, aren't you?
Columbus? That shows that you are a flirt. It's Mrs. Clinger who lives in Columbus. I live in Scranton.
Oh, of course. I meant Scranton. Every time I say Columbus, I mean Scranton. There's so much alike. High Street and Lackawanna Avenue, you know. I always did get those two towns mixed up.
Yes, and sometimes you get the girls mixed up too.
Doris, that's unkind.
Doris, holding basket up.
See what I've been doing this morning while you were riding?
She pulls open back chair to centre and, kneeling beside it, arranges daisies.
I've been gathering daisies.
Billy, kneeling back of chair, facing audience. Note, the garden chair used must have an opening in back large enough to admit Billy's head.
You gathered me weeks ago.
Doris, with her face close to back of chair.
But you aren't a daisy.
Billy, putting his head through chair's back.
No, but you gathered me just the same.
Doris, plucking petals.
He loves me not. He loves me.
Sighs. Billy, with his face close to hers.
He loves you.
He loves me not. Loves me not. Loves me not. He loves me, and here's the last one. He loves me not. Oh, Billy, he loves me not.
Billy, taking her hand.
Don't you believe it? He loves you better than anything else in the whole world.
About to kiss her. Enter Brighton, quickly from centre. Brighton, seeing them.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Rushes into house left. Doris, rising quickly.
Oh, that was Mr. Early. What will he think?
Billy, rising, with chair around neck.
So it was. But we don't care what he thinks, do we?
Advances toward her at right.
Why, Mr. Jackson, you look like you were in the pillory.
Billy, removing chair.
But it's just like Bright. Got to come butting in every time I talk to a girl.
Has he ever caught you before?
Now, you know he hasn't.
Comes close to her.
You know that I think that you...
Takes her hand. Enter Angelina from house. She runs to centre.
Oh, I saw you, I saw you, I saw you, and I'm going to tell.
Doris running to steps.
Now see what you've done. Billy Jackson, you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Runs into house at left.
Angelina, come here.
Won't do it.
You're a nice little girl, ain't you?
Yes, I am. And I'm a wise little girl, too.
You're not going to tell anyone what you just saw now, are you?
Oh, ain't I?
Not if you're a wise little girl. You see, I know the land where the chocolate drops grow.
Angelina coming to him.
Now you're talking business.
And I'll bring you a big box right after lunch.
How big a box?
Oh, a great big box.
5 pounds?
Well, maybe.
It's got to be 5 pounds and bittersweets.
Very well, little angel.
Then I won't tell what I saw just now.
That's a good little girl.
But I saw something yesterday.
Billy alarmed.
What did you see?
You know you and Lulu the maid, and she is a Lulu too.
For goodness sakes, don't say anything about that. And I'll buy you the whole candy store.
I heard her in the hall. She said, Mr. Jackson, don't you dare to kiss me.
You must have been mistaken.
I'm never mistaken. I want a new hair ribbon too. Nile green.
I'll get you one.
And a sash.
And a sash.
Say, if I were you, I'd catch just one girl and keep her.
Oh, would you?
Yes, and I'd get the one with the most money.
Out of the mouths of babes.
I ain't a babe. I'm nearly 9. I must go now. I won't tell on you. Honest, I won't.
Angelina, what pretty eyes you've got.
Angelina drawing herself up.
That'll do now, Mr. Jackson. Don't you try to flirt with me. I already have a steady.
Runs to porch.
And he don't allow no foolishness.
Runs into house left.
Ain't she the angel child? I'll have to wire Dad for more money if I stay around here much longer. It's too bad folks don't leave their angels at home when they go to wedding parties.
Enter Aunt Paradise from house. She limps down to centre.
Mr. Jackson, Mr. Early done sent me out here to find you and ask you, would you please go over to the depot and meet the 1 o'clock train? Some of the jets is coming in, and he say he busy with Miss Amy.
All right, Auntie, I'll go right over.
Aunt Paradise holding out her hand for a tip.
Excuse me, Mr. Jackson, ain't you done forgot something?
Well, why, yes. I came near forgetting my hat. Much obliged, Aunt Paradise.
Takes hat from table and exits centre to left. Aunt Paradise looking very disgusted.
Ain't that exasperating? Some folks that I knows ain't got the manners of a watermelon.
Hobbles to porch.
They sure ain't, and that's the law's truth.
Exit into house at left. Enter Mrs. Longnecker, centre. She minces down centre.
I wonder if I'm too early for luncheon. I just met the sweetest man going down the lane, and he looked right at me. I suppose he was one of the wedding party, and he was all dressed up in a riding suit, and he looked right at me. I certainly am a lucky, lucky girl to be invited to the Meek house. Folks always say it's such good luck to be in a wedding party. To think of little Amy Lee going to be married, a mere infant. It wasn't so very long ago that I was teaching her the ABCs in the public school, and now she is to be a bride tomorrow. Ah, hey-ho.
Amy and Brighton appear on porch in mourning costumes. Amy running down centre.
Why, it's Miss Longnecker.
Amy.
She kisses her.
So glad to have you over to luncheon.
Mrs. Longnecker, holding Amy's hands and looking at her.
So this is the little bride?
Yes, and here's the little groom. Bright, come here. I want you to know one of my dearest friends. Miss Longnecker, this is Mr. Early. Mr. Brighton Early.
Mrs. Longnecker, shaking hands with him.
Delighted, Mr. Early, and congratulations. But we never can forgive you for taking our little Amy away from us.
Lucky fellow, ain't I?
You certainly are.
You'll make me blush in a minute. Miss Longnecker is my old school teacher, dear.
Yes.
And not so very old either.
Oh, Mr. Early.
We received your kind remembrance this morning. It was so dear of you, and just what we wanted, wasn't it, Bright?
Yes, indeed.
I thought you would like it. Something useful as well as ornamental. I always give useful wedding presents.
I'm sure you do.
Did it come through the mail all right? I'm a little bit doubtful of this parcel post affair.
Oh, yes, it came all right. Not cracked or chipped at all.
Cracked or chipped? I'm afraid I don't understand.
I mean that it arrived all right.
I don't believe that you know what I sent.
Oh, yes, we do. It was so appropriate, and it will look lovely in our little flat.
Look lovely in your flat?
She means that it is becoming to her style.
Becoming to her style?
And you were such a dear to think of anything so dainty.
My wedding present was a new patent lawnmower.
Yes, we knew. We were both delighted. Every time I mow our lawn, I'll remember you.
Miss Longnecker, aside to Amy.
Oh, isn't he a dear?
You must come in and meet the rest of the party.
Who is to be the best man?
Billy Jackson. Haven't you ever met Billy?
Not yet, but I think I've just seen him. I met a young man going down the lane just now, and he looked right at me.
Oh, that's Billy.
He looked perfectly charming.
Yes, that's a little way that Billy has.
And I fancy I saw another one of the wedding guests at the post office this morning. She was very pretty, and wore a tan and red walking dress, with a gorgeous red hat trimmed in poppies.
I don't think she belongs here.
It was a kind of an actressy hat, and, begging my pardon, she came over to me and asked me if I could tell her where Mr. Early was stopping. She looked like an actress.
Brighton, alarmed.
An actress?
She carried a little white poodle trimmed with green ribbons.
Brighton, aside.
White poodle? It's Dodo. Great heavens!
I told her how to find the place. Probably she's a friend of yours, Mr. Early.
I don't recognize the description.
I was sure you wouldn't. Possibly she is an agent. But, Miss Longnecker, come with me, and I'll show you your room. It's nearly time for lunch.
Crosses to porch.
Thank you.
Follows her to porch and then turns.
I'll see you at lunch, Mr. Early.
Exit in house. Amy blowing a kiss.
Bye-bye, Bright.
Exit.
A little white poodle trimmed with green ribbons and looks actressy.
Sinks in chair.
It's Dodo, and she's here. There's going to be a rumpus. I know there is. I can feel it in my bones. If Dodo ever meets Amy and Mrs. Perrington-Shine, oh, great Scott! And I thought that this was going to be the happiest week of my life.
End of Act 1, Part 1. Act 1, Part 2 of The Hoodoo by Walter Ben Hare. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Hoodoo, Act 1, Part 2. March music as entrance for Professor Solomon Spiggot. Enter from left upper entrance Solomon and HWHemachus Spiggot. Both are tall and slender, and are dressed in rather seedy Prince Alberts and black trousers, rather short, white socks and low, wide-toed shoes, rather old-fashioned black vests cut high, pointed collars and seedy black four-in-hand ties. Solomon wears old silk hat and carries large black umbrella and cheap black suitcase. HWHemachus wears a wide-rimmed black hat, carries umbrella and suitcase like his father's. Both wear white cotton gloves. Solomon wears nose glasses. After entrance, there is a pause, and they stand facing the audience in centre, not seeing Brighton. HWHemachus, after pause.
Father, is this the place we are seeking?
Solomon, looking at house.
Yes, I fancy so.
But, Father, there are no signs of festivity, nor is the house decorated for the nuptials.
This is the place.
Takes a few steps down centre and sees Brighton. Brighton, meeting Solomon at centre.
Surely it is?
Yes, it is.
Brighton, shaking hands warmly.
My dear cousin Solomon.
Brighton, Brighton, I am overjoyed.
Shakes hands warmly. End music.
And I knew you at once. Just think, it's been 18 years since I saw you.
I would have known you anywhere, although you were only 5 when last we met.
Brighton, shaking hands again.
Dear old cousin Solomon, do you know, cousin, that you are the only relative I have in the world? No father, no mother, no sisters, no brothers, no uncles, no aunts, just dear old cousin Solomon.
Shakes hands warmly. Solomon, feeling his hand that Brighton shook.
This greeting overwhelms me.
HWHemachus, who during this scene has been standing at back watching, now comes down to his father's right.
Father, is this my kinsman?
Yes. Brighton, this is my son, my eldest, little HWHemachus Brighton Early Spiggot, named after you.
All but the spigot.
Shakes hands with HWHemachus.
I'm glad to meet you, cousin HWHemachus. Your father is my dearest friend.
I reciprocate the greeting, cousin Early.
Brighton, to Solomon.
And your wife, Mrs. Spiggot? Where is she?
Ah, what a disappointment. She is not here. Poor Semiramis, how she would have enjoyed this trip.
Poor Semiramis? She's not departed, is she?
Oh, no. Her health is very good. She intended to accompany me, but only yesterday little Cheops, our 6th little Spiggot, developed symptoms of fever. Poor Semiramis was forced to abandon the journey and attend to little Cheops.
Now, isn't that too bad? I've never seen Mrs. Spiggot, or little Cheops either.
He's such a bright lad, is little Cheops. Only 6, cousin Brighton, and as intelligent as his father.
Father, I beg your pardon, Father, but little brother Cheops is nearly 7. It is Ramesses who is 6.
Oh, yes, so it is.
There seems to be quite a collection of little Spigots.
7, Cousin Brighton. Hemachus here is the eldest. Then comes Eupepsia, our eldest daughter. Then Isis and Osiris are twins. Delightful children, I assure you. And then after the twins, who comes after the twins, Hemachus?
Ptolemy, father.
Ah, yes, I had forgotten Ptolemy. And Ramses and Cheops make the 7. And what a blessing they are to us, Cousin Brighton.
Yes, so I should imagine. 7.
Mrs. Spiggot sends her regards and best wishes to the happy nuptial pair. As for myself, I am delighted, cousin, that you are about to go over to the large majority, the bourne from which no traveller returns, the—
Father, I beg your pardon, father, but Cousin Early isn't going to depart this life. He is about to be married.
Thank you, little Hemachus. That fact slipped my mind entirely.
And wait till you see her, cousin. She's a bird, an angel.
A bird?
An angel? But, father—
She's got the Gibson girl backed off the fence, and we're going to be the happiest little pair of honeymooners that ever saw Niagara.
I rejoice with you. Your happiness is my happiness. I can never repay your many kindnesses to me, Cousin Brighton. You advanced me the necessary funds for my marriage. You paid for my European trip. You procured me my appointment in the university. All that I have I owe to you. Semiramis and the 7 came from you.
Not on your life. Why shouldn't I have been liberal with you? You were my only living relative.
I will never forget your kindness, and if ever I can repay—
Now, don't speak of that.
But I must speak of it. You have overwhelmed me with gratitude. It is for your sake that I am here mingling for the first time in many years with a festive throng. For your sake I shall be blithe and gay.
That's right, but write in and have a good time. I want you to forget your Egyptology and your university and be one of us for a few days. We'll take a run over to the city, and I'll take my last wild fling on the Great White Way. I'll bet I can show you something that you never saw in Egypt.
But, father—
Yes, little Rollo, you may go along too. You'll have the time of your young life.
I am very glad to hear that you are to be married, cousin. Semiramis and myself are overjoyed that you are about to settle down.
Yes, I have to settle down in order to settle up.
I have heard that the young lady is an heiress.
Right, and she's a dream as well.
Semiramis and myself were rather worried the last time we heard that you were to be married.
Well, that was 2 years ago.
That lady was an actress or a performer, I believe.
Yes, Dodo de Graft, the Dazzling Daisy. But I haven't heard from her for nearly 2 years. She's probably dazzling someone else now.
I have ventured to bring you a little gift, Cousin Brighton.
Brighton, shaking his hands.
Thank you, cousin, but it wasn't necessary.
I believe it is the custom. It is an ancient scarab.
A scarab? What's a scarab?
An Egyptian beetle. This is a mummified insect taken from a tomb of the pharaohs.
Takes black box from pocket and gives it to Brighton. Brighton, taking out the pin.
Oh, it's a beauty.
That little fellow is over 4,000 years old.
Doesn't look his age, does he?
there are only 7 in existence. The Boston Art Museum offered me $3,000 for that scarab last year.
And you are giving it to me for a wedding present?
Shakes his hands warmly.
Oh, dear old cousin Solomon.
This is no ordinary scarab. There is a mysterious story connected with that beetle. It was sacred to the Egyptian deity.
I like Egyptian deities myself.
Takes cigarette case from pocket.
Have one?
Thank you, no. That scarab is the largest one ever known, and it is said to have the peculiar property of bringing to its owner the favor of the great god Osiris.
And you are giving it to me?
Shakes hands warmly.
Dear old cousin Solomon.
It must be buried, however, for 24 hours.
Buried? What for?
When Ka, that is the name of the scarab, Ka, when Ka passes into strange hands, it is best to bury him for 24 hours in the ground, his native element.
But why?
The natural law of recompense. The favor of Osiris is yours as long as you keep the sacred scarab, but for 24 hours you must suffer the displeasure of all the other gods.
You don't believe all this Arabian Nights tale, do you?
Who knows? When I became the owner of the sacred Ka, I followed instructions and buried it for 24 hours. Then I dug it up, and upon my word, Cousin Brighton, I've enjoyed the favor of the great Osiris ever since.
Brighton, putting the pin in his tie.
Well, old Ka makes a good-looking scarf pin at any rate.
Father, can you not persuade Cousin Brighton to bury the scarab?
What's the use? What can all the Egyptian gods do to harm me? I'm the happiest fellow on earth. Going to be married in 3 days. I'll wear the scarab for a while, just to see if there's anything in the theory.
I have often wanted to see its efficacy tested myself.
I'll wear it as an experiment. I don't feel the wrath of old Cirrus.
Enter Lulu from house. She comes down centre.
Mr. Early, the special messenger from Tiffany's has just brought 3 necklaces for you to make a selection.
Is he in the house?
Yes, sir.
Turns and sees Hemachus. Flirts with him.
Cousin Solomon, if you will excuse me for a few minutes, I'll have Lulu show you to your room. Take them to the corner room next to mine, Lulu.
Exit in house.
Yes, sir.
Crosses to Hemachus, touches him on the arm, droops eyes.
Walk this way, sir.
Crosses to porch. Hemachus, keeping his eyes on Lulu, follows her and bumps into Solomon.
Why, Father?
You are forgetting your grip, little Hemachus.
This way, Mr. What is the name?
Spiggot. Solomon Spiggot. This is my eldest son, little Hemachus.
I'm pleased to meet you, Hem. Walk this way.
Exit loftily.
I can't walk that way, but I'll do my best. Father, she called me Hem.
Stands staring after Lulu.
Come, my son.
Exit into house.
And she called me Hem. She called me Hem.
Falls up the steps and exits in house. Bright music for Dodo de Graft's entrance. Swells loud as she enters and ends when she speaks. Enter Dodo centre. She pauses at back and looks around.
The chauffeur said that this was the place, and it has the look. American respectability plus New England architecture plus Hackensack furnishing. Poor Brighton. What a life he'll lead. Here.
Comes down centre.
There's no one around.
Laughter in house.
Ah, the wedding party, and I'm the uninvited guest. Come, Dodo, your little bomb is all ready to explode. Poor old Brighton, won't he be glad to see little Dodo? Won't he? It's a shame to be cast for the heavy adventurous in their little domestic comedy, but business is business, and I'm too healthy to live on air.
Enter Aunt Paradise from left intermediate entrance.
Excuse me, lady. Is you looking for somebody?
Yes, I was just about to ring.
Is you one of the wedding guests?
I haven't quite decided yet. I want to see Mr. Early.
Yes'm. Come in. I'll denounce you to him.
Dodo, taking a $1 bill from her purse.
I wonder if you couldn't arrange to have him come out here?
Oh, Mr. Early? Why, lady, he's the bridegroom.
Dodo, twirling bill.
Yes, I know. Suppose you go to him privately and say that one of his old friends is out here and wants to speak to him. Do you think you could do that?
Aunt Paradise, reaching for the bill.
Yes'm. I knows I could.
Privately, remember. Don't let anyone else know.
Yes'm. I'll do it so privately that I won't know myself.
That's right.
Gives her the bill.
Just take a seat over there in the arbor, and I'll have him here quicker than a telephone.
Exit into house. Dodo, crossing left to arbor and looking at it.
Quite a little nest for a pair of turtle doves. I wonder if he calls her his little hyacinth bud. I wonder if he tells her that his love is like an ocean with a kiss on every wave. Brighton was such a poetical boy.
Sits. Enter Gwendolyn and Billy from right intermediate entrance, arm in arm.
But Mamma says that I mustn't go out walking with you anymore.
Yes, I know. But I'm here only for such a short time. In 3 days the wedding will be over, and then I'll have to go away.
They cross to centre. Dodo rises and listens, unobserved.
And maybe I won't see you again for ages and ages. Mamma is so particular.
Billy, as they stroll up, right.
Well, we'd better make hay while the sun shines. You do like me, don't you?
I'm afraid I do, but Mamma says...
Yes, I know that, but Mama is in the house.
I'm afraid she'll miss me.
I hope she'll miss us both. A miss is as good as a mile.
Mrs. Klinger will miss us too.
Now, Gwen.
But you do like me the best, don't you?
They stroll off right upper exit.
It's Billy Jackson, and still at his old tricks. That man would flirt with his own grandmother and fall in love with a wax figure.
Enter Brighton from house.
Paradise said someone wanted to see me.
Dodo, crossing to him with extended hand.
Brighton.
Dodo, I knew it. I knew it.
You didn't invite me to your wedding, but I was sure that I'd be welcome anyway, so I came without an invitation. Aren't you glad to see me?
Oh, yes, I'm glad. I'm overjoyed.
Aren't you going to ask me in to lunch?
Come down to business, Dodo. What do you want here?
What do I want? I want an ocean of love with a kiss on every wave.
I don't know what you are talking about.
Oh, don't you? Well, I have a certain little package of letters right here in my shopping bag that might refresh your memory.
My letters? Give them to me.
That's exactly what I came all the way from St. Paul for.
Then you won't cut up rough? You will give me the letters?
Don't talk like a schoolboy. Don't you think that I have any self-respect? Any pride?
Of course. But what are you going to do?
You have treated me shamefully, brutally. You won a trusting maiden's heart, then tossed it aside like a broken plaything.
This isn't melodrama.
No, my sense of eternal humor has saved the situation. I found myself deserted by my fiancé. I laughed. You left me, and for 2 long years I never heard a word from you. I laughed. I saw your wedding announcement in the papers last week. I laughed.
May I ask the cause of your merriment?
Certainly. You are marrying the orphan heiress of Larrymore Lee. I slave night and day to make 80 per. Why do I laugh? Because my days of drudgery are over. No more stock work in St. Paul. No more 2 shows a week and 2 performances a day. I'm going to be a New York star. I've struck a bonanza.
And the bonanza is?
Right here, this bundle of letters. You said, come down to business. I'll take you at your word. I want $30,000 from you before this wedding takes place.
$30,000? Absurd! You've played in melodrama so long that everything seems like a play to you. I won't give you 30 cents.
Oh, yes, you will.
Not on your life.
For if you don't...
Slight pause. Dodo smiles.
Well, if I don't...
There will be no wedding.
Don't you know that you are making yourself liable to an action for blackmail?
Blackmail? Such an ugly word. Not at all, Mr. Early. I have 17 separate and distinct proposals of marriage, all written by you. 17! Don't think for a moment that you are talking to little Lorraine, the deacon's daughter.
No, I don't. Not for a moment.
You've heard my terms. What about it?
I won't be blackmailed.
You know Mrs. Perrington-Shine's objection to any newspaper notoriety. Miss Lee, your fiancée, would break off this match in a moment if I sued you for a breach of promise.
Oh, you won't do that.
$30,000 is a mere bagatelle to you. To me it means fame and fortune. I have a lawyer with me in this very town. Now make your choice. $30,000 and freedom, or a suit for twice that amount. And you know how I can play on the sympathies of a jury.
I haven't got $30,000.
Oh, yes, you have. Your account in the Second National shows a balance of over $50,000.
I'll tell you what I'll do. You go to the hotel, and I'll come over this afternoon and talk to you about it.
I'll not do it. I came to the wedding.
But you can't stay here.
Why not?
Because you can't.
A lovely reason.
Brighton, taking her arm.
Come now, Doe. Be reasonable.
I am reasonable. $30,000 is reasonable.
Let me take you to the hotel.
He tries to lead her out. She refuses to go. Enter Solomon from house.
Cousin Brighton, I hope I'm not intruding.
Not at all.
Introduce me to your friend.
Cousin, this is a friend of mine.
Solomon crossing and shaking hands with her.
I am delighted.
Thanks. You look it.
Solomon, standing by Dodo.
Is this your bonny little bride, Brighton?
Heavens, no.
Enter Mrs. Perrington-Shine from house. She comes down centre.
Brighton, lunch is about to be served. Ah, more guests. Friends of yours, Brighton?
Amy appears on porch.
Yes, this is my cousin, Professor Spiggot. Professor, This is Mrs. Shine.
Mrs. Perrington-Shine.
Amy, coming down left centre.
Bright.
And this is my fiancée, Miss Lee.
Dodo, coming a little forward.
Ahem.
Clears her throat. Brighton, in despair.
And this is...
Your wife, Professor? How do you do, Mrs. Spiggot?
Crosses to Dodo and shakes hands.
But my wife, Mrs. Spiggot,
has just arrived.
To Amy.
My dear, let me present to you my oldest friend, Professor Spiggot and Mrs. Spiggot.
Dodo, Mrs. Perrington-Shine and Amy form a little group chatting at right. Brighton grasps Solomon's arm and pulls him down centre.
For my sake, cousin, I'm in an awful scrape. For my sake, this is Mrs. Spiggot.
But I fear, Cousin Brighton,
it will come out right in the end.
I sincerely trust so.
Come into the house. You must be tired after your long journey.
Ladies cross to porch.
You came all the way from Missouri, didn't you?
Oh, I'm from Missouri, all right.
Exeunt ladies in house.
I cannot permit this deception to continue, cousin.
For goodness sakes, don't desert me now. A friend in need is a friend indeed.
But what would Semiramis say?
Semiramis?
My wife. My real wife.
Oh, she's miles away. She'll never know anything about it.
But my conscience isn't clear.
Well, neither is mine. Don't let that worry you.
But I fail to see the necessity for this impersonation.
This woman is trying to blackmail me.
Hand her over to the police.
Never. That's just what she wants. You see, she's an actress I used to know in St. Paul. I was rather daffy about her in those days, and wrote her some letters.
Aha! Oh, that's very grave, Brighton. Very, very grave.
Don't I know it? Now, after 2 years, she hears about my approaching wedding and turns up and threatens to sue me. She wants $30,000.
But why did you introduce her as my wife?
I had to introduce her somehow, and your wife didn't come. What's the difference anyhow? It's only for a day or two.
But what would Semiramis say?
Semiramis needn't know anything about your other wife.
Great heavens! My other wife? Brighton, I am not a Mormon.
Enter Hemachus from house. He crosses to Solomon and shakes his finger at him. Hemachus, reprovingly.
Father, Father.
Yes, little Hemachus?
I beg your pardon, Father, but how many mothers have I?
Hemachus, the idea! What would Semiramis say?
That lady in the house insists that she is your wife. She says, and all the others say, that she is Mrs. Spiggot. Father, I am very, very much perplexed. How many wives have you, Father?
Only one, little Hemachus.
Only one, of course. That lady in the house is a little...
Taps his forehead.
A little?
Taps his forehead.
Yes, little Hemachus, she's a little...
Taps forehead.
Father, I do not comprehend what a little...
Taps forehead.
Means?
She's off her trolley. Just a little woozy upstairs. Bats in the belfry?
Father, What is Cousin Brighton saying?
He means that the lady in the house is non corpus menti.
Oh, then she's not your wife.
Of course not, and never was. She's non mentis. What he said.
Father, forgive me. I hope that I have not acted with undue haste. I fear you will reproach me for what I have done.
What have you done?
I sent a telegram to Mamma saying that you had another wife here. Father, have I done wrongly?
Oh, goodness! What will Semiramis say?
Sent a telegram to your mamma? Have you done wrongly? Cousin Solomon, drop him in the river and tie a stone around his neck.
Malachi in the house.
Early, early! Where is he? Thieves, thieves! We've been robbed!
Enter on porch very much excited.
Oh, Brighton, something awful has happened. You know the necklaces the jeweller sent for examination?
Yes. What's happened to them?
Gone! Stolen from the safe in my room. There's a thief in the house.
Great heavens! Not those Tiffany necklaces.
All three of them. I put 'em in the safe not an hour ago.
Did you lock the safe?
Of course I did. Securely. I knew these necklaces were worth a fortune.
$12,000.
Cousin, this is horrible.
It's a nightmare.
I locked the safe and went to dress for lunch.
Who knew the combination?
No one. Not a soul in the house except myself. And the safe is a patent Detroit.
$12,000.
Enter Dodo from house. She comes down to Brighton at right centre.
Come now, Bright. I've been bluffed long enough. I want that 30,000 and I want it quickly.
30,000? What does she mean?
Oh, she's...
Taps forehead.
She's...
Taps forehead.
Yes, she's decidedly...
Taps forehead.
Is that so? Well, I'll show you. I'll expose the whole outfit. This man...
Bright music played softly. Enter Billy and Gwendolyn from left upper entrance. Billy comes down left centre to Brighton, who is centre.
Telegram for you, Bright. I got it at the office.
I'm almost afraid to open it.
Tears it open.
Great heavens!
Sinks in chair, staring at telegram.
What is it?
Second National Bank suspends payment. Your deposit thought to be worthless. That's the last straw. I'm choking.
He puts hand to throat and feels the scarab pin in tie. Slowly takes pin out and looks at it.
The scarab. I'm hoodooed.
Throws pin on floor and tramps on it.
Now, we'll see if my luck will change.
Music swells to loud. All watch him curiously. Solomon and Hematus at right, Dodo at right centre, Brighton centre, Billy left centre, Malachi at left, Gwendolyn up left. Curtain. Second curtain. Characters all off. Enter Aunt Paradise from left upper entrance. She comes down limping to centre, sees the pin, picks it up and pins it on her waist, and exits into house, limping. End of Act 1, Part 2. Act 2 of The Hoodoo by Walter Ben Hare. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Act 2. Scene: the library. Boxed interior with window in rear and 2 entrances at right and 1 at left. Fireplace, practical and large enough to admit Mr. Dunn, up left. In front of this is a large library table with chairs around it, and reading lamp, magazines, decanter and glasses on it. Large leather couch down left. Large leather chair down right. Library desk with chair between 2 entrances at right. Chairs and palms ad lib. Ghostly music to take up the curtain. The curtain rises and discloses an empty stage in total darkness. There is a pronounced pause. Then a light is seen from an electric flash or dark lantern in the fireplace. Enter Dunn from the fireplace, carrying a large sack. He moves stealthily and flashes the light at intervals. Dunn, crossing to table left, flashing light around.
Candlestick. Wonder if it's plated.
Examines candelabra with lantern.
No, it's the real thing. I need that for my drawing room.
Slips candelabra into sack.
Look at the bric-a-brac.
Crosses to mantelshelf and takes ornaments, and puts them in his sack.
It ain't much, but every little bit helps.
Turns from mantel and bumps into a chair, knocking it over and dropping his sack with much clatter.
Damn!
Grabs sack and limps to fireplace, and exits in fireplace. Aunt Paradise, peeking in right with a lighted candle in her hand.
Who there? Who is you? Answer me, hear me? Answer me. I'm so scared that I'm white in the face.
Crosses to table and turns on electric light. Lights all up.
I knows I heard something, and there's a gwine to be trouble 'cause I feels it floating.
Sees chair overturned.
Great day in the morning. Buglums done been here as sure as you're born. Buglums are ghostesses, are hants.
Straightens chair and arranges room.
This here colored lady is a gwine to get her another job, 'cause this house is getting too scurrilous like for me to reside in. It sure is. I don't object to live people round the house, but when it comes to hants and ghostesses, that's when I'm a gwine to quit. Couldn't even eat my supper in peace. Not a bite. Too much mystification in this house for me. I need something for my nerves.
Pours glass of wine and is about to drink it. Enter Lulu from left with a box of cigars. When door at left is opened, conversation and laughter are heard from the dining room. Lulu, close to Aunt Paradise.
Look at that now.
Aunt Paradise, dropping glass, which breaks.
My lawsy mazzy kingdom come.
What's the matter with you? Got the willies?
Lawsy, is that you, Lulu, honey? I thought that it was a hant or a buglum. I'm scared purtin' out of death. Ain't you got no more sense than to scare me that away? You made me break that glass.
Picks up pieces and throws them out the window.
I guess it was your conscience that scared you. Drinking the fine wine you was. The very best, too, that Mrs. Shine only put out here for the wedding.
My nerves is so upset that I needs a little stimulation.
What's the matter with your nerves?
I don't know. You know, Lulu, I think that I's conjured. Every blasted thing that I's put my hand to this evening has turned out wrong.
Yes, I heard the missus complaining about the supper.
Everything went wrong. It ain't my fault. I's conjured, and that ain't all. There's some mystification a-gwine on in this house, and that sure is the truth.
What do you mean?
I don't know what it is. Hants or ghostes or something like that. And this colored lady is sure going to look for another situation.
Loud laughter and applause in the dining room.
What's that? What's going on in there? It sounds like a circus show.
It's more than that. It's that Mrs. Spiggot. She's the funniest thing. She can beat Billy Jackson telling a story.
Is that the old man's wife?
Yes. I wonder how she came to marry an old bonehead like him. He must have a lot of money.
What's she doing?
Singing and play acting, just like a theater lady. She's got every man in the bunch going.
Puts cigars on table near fireplace.
Is they nearly through?
They got as far as the cheese. They're waiting for Mr. Early. I wonder why he went to town at this time of night.
Going after the police, I reckon.
What for?
I told you there's mystification going on. What'd you bring them cigars in here for?
For the men to smoke, of course.
Crosses to left.
Where you gwine?
Back to the dining room. Why?
I'm scared to be down in that old kitchen by myself. That's why.
What are you scared of?
Buglums.
There are no burglars here.
Is that so? Well, if they hain't burglums, they is hants. About an hour ago, I had my supper all laid out on the kitchen table, ready to eat. I went to the icebox to get some spring onions. My back wasn't turned more'n a minute. No, ma'am, not more'n a minute.
Well, what happened?
I come back to get my supper, and it wasn't there.
Where was it?
How do I know? It was gone. Not a bite left. And Lulu, honey, there wasn't a soul in that part of the house except me. Now, if that wasn't Hance, then what was it?
Why, Aunt Paradise, that's a joke on you.
Wasn't no joke neither. What become of that supper?
Why, you ate it and forgot all about it.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. When I eats, and I knows it. I didn't have a bite. It's Hance, and I hain't gwine to stay round no place where there's Hance. They hain't healthy.
Maybe your fellow took the lunch?
I hain't got no fella. I's a 'spectable married widow, I is, with 6 little black and tans. You know I hain't got no fellow.
Well, I have, and that reminds me.
Takes a handful of cigars.
He does love to smoke good cigars.
Goes to door at left.
Wait a minute. Don't leave me alone. Something's liable to carry me off.
You've been dreaming and had a fine nightmare.
Takes more cigars.
Don't be afraid, Aunt Paradise.
Exit at left. Aunt Paradise looking after her.
Look at her take them cigars. If that ain't the nerviest gal I ever seed, she sure is.
Dunn steals cigar box and exits in fireplace.
Her fella loves to smoke good cigars, does he? Huh. What right she got stealing our cigars? That's the trouble with these white help. They ain't got no reprehensibility. I hain't got no fellow, but I reckon my gentleman friend likes to smoke good cigars his own self.
Crosses to table, not looking at it.
Fact is, I's got several gentlemen friends, and they all likes good cigars.
Feels for box without looking at it.
She ain't the only one who's got gentlemen friends.
Looks, starts, backs away from table, staring at it.
Huh. Great day in the morning. Now I knows that there's some mystification a-going on in this house. This colored lady gwine to pack her grip right away. My feelings tells me that I'd better go while the going is good, 'cause Hance hain't healthy. They sure hain't.
Aunt Paradise starts to exit right, and Billy enters from left.
Hello, Auntie.
Good evening, Mr. Jackson.
What's the matter? I didn't frighten you, did I?
No, sir. I ain't frightened. I'm just scared, that's all.
What scared you?
The burglars.
Why, there are no burglars here.
That's what I said. I said all along that it's hants.
Well, if any hants get after you, Auntie, just call on me.
Yes, sir. If they gets after me, you's a gwine to hear me call on somebody.
Enter Malachi from left.
Just a moment, Paradise.
Aunt Paradise returning to right centre.
Yes, sir.
You haven't seen any suspicious-looking people around the house today, have you?
No, sir. I hasn't seen 'em.
No one who looked as if they were after something?
Nobody but Mr. Jackson there. He's the most suspicious person I've seen.
Why, you don't think that I look that way, do you?
You've been flirting round here so much that you look like you was after a wife.
I guess she's on to you, Billy. That isn't what I mean, Paradise. I mean someone who doesn't look right.
That there Spiggot man don't look right to me.
I mean a thief. A burglar.
Lawsy, Mr. Meek, is there a thief here? I knowed it.
You see, Mr. Early lost his watch this morning, and there are other things missing.
Yes, sir. My supper is missing.
You haven't found anything today, have you?
Nothing but this pin.
Takes scarab pin from dress.
I found that out in the front yard.
It's a scarf pin. Probably one of the men lost it. I'll ask them.
Aunt Paradise gives the pin to Billy, who pins it on his coat.
Here's $1 for you, Auntie.
Gives coin. Aunt Paradise, pocketing coin.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. You ain't near as suspicious as you was.
Chuckles and exits right.
Brighton should be back by now.
Did he go to the police headquarters?
Yes, and to the bank. That boy had enough trouble this afternoon to do him for the rest of his life. And the peculiar thing of it was that it all came in a bunch.
Auto horn heard.
Well, there he comes now.
What a pleasant little woman Mrs. Spiggot is. So entertaining.
Yes, she is entertaining.
And how well she recites. That last little poem was positively touching.
Yes, that's a little specialty of hers. Touching.
She is quite an addition to our party.
I guess Brighton thinks that she's a multiplication.
Enter Brighton from right, with auto coat, cap and goggles. Brighton, coming centre.
Boys, congratulate me. That telegram was all a mistake. It wasn't the second national at all. It was the fourth national that failed.
Billy, sinking in chair at left centre.
The fourth national?
Yes, I didn't lose a cent.
Every penny that I have in the world is in the fourth national.
Billy.
Fact. Every cent. Dad said that it was the safest bank in town.
This is awful. Are you sure that it was the fourth national, Brighton?
Yes, that's a settled fact. I never knew that you had your money there, Billy.
Places coat, hat, goggles and gloves on hall tree.
Every cent. Father used to be a director before he moved to Jersey.
There seems to be some awful fatality pursuing us.
Yes. First the diamond necklaces disappeared.
Then you got the fright of your life about your money.
And now you've lost yours.
To say nothing of Dodo.
Dodo? What is Dodo?
Oh, Nothing. That's just a little term of reproach, that's all. Dodo bird, you know.
Billy, still seated and staring gloomily before him.
I don't suppose that there would be any use of my going to the city tonight.
No, there's nothing you can do tonight.
Are you sure it was the 4th National?
Absolutely. I went round to the bank and found it closed with a sign of failed on the door.
Well, I guess that means me for the rolling mills. No matrimony for me now.
Were you thinking of that?
One never knows what bad luck is liable to happen.
Is there anything that I can do, Mr. Jackson?
Not a thing in the world, thank you, Mr. Meek.
Brighton, you'd better come in and have a bite to eat. The ladies are waiting at the table.
All right, Uncle Malachi.
Comes down to Billy and gives him his hand. Billy rises and grasps Brighton's hand warmly.
You know me, old man.
Thank you, Bright.
I'll help you all I can. Our little fraternity pins stand for something more than words.
I know how you feel, Bright.
Now don't be downhearted. Maybe the failure is not as bad as reported. I'll drive you over to the city the first thing in the morning.
Don't say anything about it to the ladies.
Of course not.
Keep a stiff upper lip. Probably there is some mistake.
Crosses to left door.
Coming, Brighton.
Exit in dining room. Laughter heard.
You haven't got a monopoly on the trouble market, Billy boy. Just think of me and Dodo. I've seen her lawyer and mine. I suppose there's nothing else to do but to give her $30,000.
It's a swindle.
I guess we're in the same boat. But remember our old college motto. Every cloud of adversity shows a man what true friendship means.
They clasp hands. Pause.
You'd better go in and get some dinner. They're waiting.
All right. Let's forget our troubles for tonight, Billy.
Nothing can be done now.
So it's no use to worry.
Exit in dining room at left. Billy, sinking in chair and staring in front of him.
Every cent that I had in the world. I never can marry little Doris now. Poor little kid. She said she would give me her answer tonight. It will have to be Mrs. Clinger. She's the heiress of the bunch. It's the only way. Poor little Doris. I hope she didn't take me seriously. Poor little Gwendolyn, too. She won't care, but I'm afraid that little Doris will. It's an awful thing to be in love with 3 girls at the same time. No, not 3 girls. 2 girls and a widow. A rich widow. And from the present outlook, the rich widow is going to cop the matrimonial prize. Oh, Lord, then I'll have to be a father to that little angel Angelina. I won't do it. But her mother is an heiress. Well, maybe I can stand little Angelina. But poor Gwendolyn, and poor little Doris.
Exit right. Enter cautiously from the fireplace. Done. He comes into centre stealthily.
I guess I've got everything that can be got. Now let me see how I'm going to get away.
Starts to dining room at left. Laughter heard.
Nothing doing yet. Back to your chimbley, Sandy Claus. Back to your chimbley.
Exit in fireplace. Enter Gwendolyn and Amy from left, chatting. They cross to right and sit.
I think Mrs. Spigot's a dear, and such a bright, sparkling girl, too.
She's awfully funny. I'm afraid that Mamma doesn't approve of her. She doesn't seem to see the point of Mrs. Spigot's jokes.
And what a pretty dress she has on. I always thought that professors' wives and faculty women were dowdy, but she isn't at all.
Enter Mrs. Clinger, Mrs. Perrington-Shine, and Doris. They form a group in the centre of the stage, all seated.
I wonder where Billy Jackson is.
Looking at the moon, I suppose.
Yes, Billy adores the moon.
And so do I.
That's because there is a man in it. We all adore it.
Enter Dodo, Angelina, and Miss Longnecker. They sit at left.
We are so pleased to have you with us, Mrs. Spiggot. I like you already. You're Bright's only cousin, aren't you?
Yes, his only one.
He'll have a bunch of cousins when he gets married. Amy has got cousins to burn.
Angelina!
Well, she has.
Don't you find it rather dull in your college town, Mrs. Spiggot?
Oh, no, I never find it dull anywhere.
But a college set are generally so slow and depressing.
I don't think that anyone ever accused my set of being slow and depressing.
You don't look like a professor's wife at all, Mrs. Spiggot.
Don't I? Now that's strange, isn't it?
I am sure Mrs. Spiggot gets her hats from a milliner, and somehow one never associates a milliner with the headgear of a faculty woman.
And they always wear square-toed shoes. Your shoes aren't square-toed, are they?
Dodo, showing foot.
The idea!
And they always wear crystal beads on their dinner dresses in the faculty set.
Well, my set isn't like the usual faculty set.
Mrs. Perrington-Shine?
Yes, dear?
Why is it that every girl in this bunch is crazy about Billy Jackson?
Angelina!
Ima, if you can't make that child behave, you had better send her to bed.
You hear that, Angelina?
It's funny that I can't mix in the talk without getting squelched every time.
That will do, young lady. I can't imagine where she picks up such low expressions.
From Billy Jackson.
I have often wanted to visit your college, Mrs. Spiggot. Do you do much work in the museum?
I never do museum work. My line is legitimate stock.
And are you interested in suffrage, Mrs. Spiggot?
Of course I am, and for it strong. Every girl in our company is an out-and-out suffragette.
What a very congenial company you must have.
Yes, you ought to see us after the last performance on Saturday night.
Do you have your suffragette meetings on Saturday night?
Yes, with a string band and a little lobster lunch.
How very original. So you always have lobsters?
Yes, both human and a la Newburgh.
I'm heartily in sympathy with the suffrage movement. I think woman has been man's slave too long.
I'm sure you never were anybody's slave, dear Mrs. Perrington-Shine.
Of course not. I referred to women in general. The time at last has come for us to assert ourselves. We have kept silent too long.
Fancy a woman keeping silent.
We'll show man that we are his equal.
Of course we will.
And more than his equal, his superior.
Mrs. Perrington-Shine, applauding.
Our place is at the ballot box as well as in the house.
Dodo, applauding.
You're right. My views exactly.
I should like to see any man try to dictate to me.
I wonder what would happen.
But, Mrs. Perrington-Shine, don't you think that we women can trust the men to do our voting for us?
When you've been married twice, as I have, you won't trust a man to do anything. You won't trust them at all.
I'm willing to let my husband do the voting for me.
But suppose you haven't a husband?
Then I'd want a man before I'd want to vote.
But wouldn't it be grand if the women got in power and could make the men do just exactly what we wanted them to?
Whenever that happens, there won't be a bachelor left in America.
Bright says that he will vote just the way I want him to.
When you are married, you'll learn not to believe everything your husband says. There's nothing opens a girl's eyes quicker than marriage.
And the funny thing about it is that every girl is anxious to have them opened.
I'd like to have a hand in making the laws of this country. So many things need reform.
The most crying need for reform is the entire male sex. Why, statistics prove that the married woman is more likely to lose her mind than any other human being.
There's a reason for that. You see, she is always giving her husband a piece of it.
This country is far behind several of the European countries in the matter of suffrage. Why, in Denmark they even have women soldiers and women sailors.
Women sailors! Just imagine women sailors in this country. If they were on a ship and someone called out, "A sail! A sail!" every woman would be looking for the bargain counter and wondering if they were going to give trading stamps.
Mrs. Clinger, rising.
The men seem to be having a session.
Amy, rising.
I wonder if we couldn't have a little dance.
Yes, Mamma. Can't we have a little dance?
I have no objection.
Come on, girls. Let's push the furniture back in the parlors.
I'll call the maid.
Exit right.
We'll all take turns at the piano. Come on.
Exeunt Amy, Gwendolen, Doris, Mrs. Clinger, and Angelina. Miss Longnecker, rising and crossing to right.
Does your husband dance?
Dodo, forgetting.
My husband? Oh, you mean the professor?
Yes, he's such a brilliant man, isn't he?
Oh, awfully.
He must travel a great deal.
He does. I never saw a brilliant man yet who didn't go out at night.
Are you interested in Egyptology too?
Oh, yes. I'm very interested in all the ologies.
What a unique country Egypt is, isn't it?
It's more than unique. It's décolleté.
And the camels and the pyramids and the Sphinx. How I should like to see the Sphinx.
She's the greatest woman in the world. She hasn't spoken for 20 centuries.
And the picturesque sheikhs.
Dodo, not comprehending.
They were picturesque, weren't they?
I suppose that you saw many an old mummy in your travels.
You're right, but you can see many an old mummy without leaving this town.
Did you visit Tripoli?
I think so, but I only left my card. She wasn't at home.
Music from right.
Oh, Amy is playing the piano. Shall we join them?
Crosses to right.
In a minute.
Rises and crosses right quickly.
Do you dance, Mrs. Spiggot?
Do I? Ask me. Does a duck swim?
Exeunt ladies at right. Enter Brighton from left.
Everyone thinks that Dodo is the professor's wife. I'll have to pay her that money and get rid of her at once. It's hitting me pretty hard just at this time. I wonder if the police can locate the thief. They said they'd have a plainclothes detective over here right away.
Enter Solomon from left.
Cousin Brighton, I am very much agitated.
You are? Look at me. I'm so agitated that I'm afraid to sit down, for fear some new calamity will happen.
I went to my room just now, Cousin Brighton, and what do you think?
I'm too worried to think. What happened?
2 trunks full of feminine apparel were in my room. Several gowns and lacy things were on my bed. Oh, Brighton, what would Semiramis say? And on my dresser were false hair and other articles whose use I can only surmise. I was appalled, dear cousin, appalled.
You must have got into the wrong room.
Not at all. Those articles all belonged to the lady you said was my wife. Oh, I fear that was a grave mistake.
Oh, they were Dodo's? What did she say?
Fortunately for me, she was not present.
You see, they naturally supposed that was the room to put her in. Don't worry, cousin. It will all turn out right.
Oh, but I should worry. Her things must be taken from my room. I was mortified and shocked. And then, what would Semiramis say?
I'll fix it up. Where did they put little Bright Eyes?
Little Bright Eyes? I fear I do not comprehend.
Little Rollo, you know, my little cousin?
Oh, you mean little Hemachus?
Yes, little Hemachus. What room did they give him?
The one right across the hall from mine.
I'll have Dodo put in there.
In there? Impossible! I'll never permit that. Semiramis would be horrified.
Why should she?
Put her in there? Innocent little Hemachus? Shocking!
Oh, we'll have to move over with you, of course. That will settle the whole business.
My dear cousin, I am not used to deception. Please tell the household that this lady is not my wife. Couldn't you say that she is a tax collector or a book agent? Please, please, don't insist on her being my wife.
Oh, we can't change that now. It's working all right. We'll get rid of her tomorrow.
But suppose Semiramis learns of all this. How could I ever explain to Semiramis?
Don't explain. Tell her it was all a mistake. Every wife has to listen to that fairy tale sometime or other.
You don't know Semiramis. She is of a suspicious nature.
Oh, too bad, dear old Solomon. We'll do our best to keep the whole thing from Cousin Semiramis.
Enter Dodo from right.
Hello, hubby.
Please don't call me hubby.
They're starting a dance in here. Come on and join your little trusting wifey.
Cousin Brighton, what shall I do?
Do as she says, of course. It's the easiest way.
I'm waiting for you, Solly.
Solomon crossing to her.
Please don't call me Solly.
Come on. See you later, Cousin Brighton.
Brighton throws sofa pillow at Dodo, who laughs and exits right, followed by Solomon.
I'd give $1,000 if I'd never seen that woman. And they call her the Dazzling Daisy.
Enter Aunt Paradise from left.
Mr. Early, is that you? I'm sure glad you is back.
Why? What's wrong?
This here whole house is upside. That's what's wrong. Burglars, thieves, hants, and ghostesses in it.
What's been stolen now?
Pert not everything we's got. I ain't had a bite of supper. And Lulu put a box of cigars right there on the table. And where is they now?
Someone took them away, I suppose.
Not someone, some spook. That's what it was, a spook. I knows. I was right here in the room the whole blessed time. She put the box of cigars right there. I seen her when she done it. I was a-looking right at that box when all of a sudden it begun to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Then finally it went poof and turned right into air. I went over and looked all round and it wasn't nowhere in sight. Now if that ain't hants, what is it?
I think that you're troubled with too much imagination, Aunt Paradise.
Well, if my imagination makes me act that way, I'm sure going to see the doctor and have my imagination taken out.
Come now, Auntie. Didn't you or Lulu take that box of cigars for some of your retinue?
Some of my which?
Some of your admirers.
No, sir. No, sir. I'm a respectable married widow, I am, and I wouldn't steal a thing under the sky. 'Deed I wouldn't. Much less a old box of cigars. Don't have no use for cigars nohow.
You and Lulu have worked here a long time, haven't you?
Yes, sir. Going on 8 years, and nobody ever accused us of stealing anything yet. I ain't no thief, and I don't want no deflections cast on my character. I tells you, Mr. Early, it's hence. That's all. I's done said my say, and this colored lady gwine to hunt for another situation right away. People is people, and hence is hence, and I ain't gwine to take no chances with 'em.
Auntie, I have reason to believe that there is a burglar concealed around the house.
My lawsy massy great day in the morning. Maybe we'll all wake up tomorrow and find every last one of us killed stone dead. I'm going to pack my trunk. This here house ain't healthy no more.
You better wait till tomorrow.
Aunt Paradise, crying.
I'll bet a pretty that I don't never see no more tomorrow. I'm scared, Mr. Early. I don't want to be murdered. Lord, no, I sure don't.
The police will protect us.
If it's Buglums, they will. But if it's Hance, what we going to do then? Stole my supper, too. Didn't even get a bite.
Then you know it isn't Haunts. Haunts don't eat.
Don't they?
Of course not. It's burglars.
Don't make no difference. I'm scared to death anyhow.
Comes to him.
Mr. Early, I's got $10.67 in a lavender-colored hose in my room. Reckon them Buglums found that?
You better go up and see.
Yes, sir. That's just what I'm going to do.
Crosses to left.
Lawsy, what's become of the candelabras? Is they done tooken that too?
By George, it has disappeared. Well, what do you know about that?
I don't know nothing tall about it.
Looks in mirror.
Great day in the morning. Just look at me in the looking glass. Just look at me. I's actually turning so pale that I didn't recognize myself. I tells you, Mr. Early, they's scandalous doings in this house, there sure is. I hope them Buglums ain't discovered my lavender-colored hose with them $10.67.
Exit right, limping. Brighton, looking at the clock.
It's after 8. I don't see why they don't hurry and send that detective here.
Enter Amy from right.
Bright, why don't you come in and dance?
I'll be there right away.
There's nobody dancing except Uncle Malachi and Miss Longnecker. Where's Billy?
I'm smoking on the veranda.
Come on, Doris is playing our favorite one-step.
All right, on with the dance.
Exeunt Amy and Brighton. Enter Billy, right intermediate entrance.
I've smoked 4 cigars, and I think I have found the solution for my trouble. I propose to the widow. I'll be a papa to little Angelina, and a staunch oak for the clinging vine.
Enter Mrs. Clinger, right upper entrance.
Billy!
Ima, I was just thinking about you.
I always think about you.
Do you think about me enough to...
Aside.
Oh, it's awful, but I'll have to risk it.
You seem to be excited, Billy.
I am. I'm awfully excited. I always get awful excited every time I fall in love.
In love? Have you fallen in love?
You know I have. Ima.
Looks at her. Then, aside.
Oh, I can't do it.
Bashful boy. Why can't you continue? You said Ima, and then you paused. What did you want to tell Ima?
I wanted to... Oh, say, don't look at me.
He turns her face away.
That's better.
You said that you got excited every time you fell in love.
Don't you think it's warm in here?
I hadn't noticed it, but you were saying?
Somehow he seems awful hot this evening.
Shall we go out on the veranda? It's cooler out there. You were saying.
Yes, let's go out there. It's dark. I can't see you so plainly out there.
How bashful you are.
Do you know, Ima?
Enter Angelina from right.
Mama, I want you to come in and make someone dance with me.
Run away now, Angelina. I'm engaged.
That's just what you wanted then, ain't it? To get engaged?
Angelina, I'll have you taken upstairs if you don't run away.
See, the moon is shining on the veranda. Let's see if it will shine on us.
All right.
Turns to Angelina.
You heard me, young lady.
Billy, going out, right intermediate exit.
She'll go back to the dance. Come on.
All right. You were saying, Billy, that...
I'll finish it on the veranda.
Exeunt Billy and Mrs. Clinger, right intermediate exit.
That Billy Jackson's a mean old thing. I'll get even with him. See if I don't. I know what I'll do.
Crosses to right upper exit.
I'll put some quinine in Ma's face powder, and Mr. Billy Jackson, when you taste that, I guess you'll wish you hadn't been so smart.
Exit, right upper exit. Enter Dunn with sack from the fireplace. He enters cautiously and comes centre.
I gotta get out of this.
Looks in right upper entrance.
They're having a dance in there. Maybe I can get out over the veranda.
Crosses to right intermediate entrance.
There's nobody there.
Sound of a kiss heard at right intermediate entrance. Mrs. Clinger, out right intermediate entrance.
Now, Billy, behave.
Nothing doing.
Goes up to window in centre.
Men smoking on the porch, surrounded, can't get out, and me with the prettiest load of swag I've had for a year. Well, I guess I'll have to be old Mr. Sandy Claus again.
Crosses to table, upright. Pours drink and drinks it. Pours another and holds glass up.
Here's to easy pickings and bridal parties. May they live long and prosper.
Enter Aunt Paradise from left, hastily, limping. Dunn darts behind the screen, upright. Aunt Paradise, with lavender stocking.
Buglums never touched my private bank. Every cent of my $10.67 is here. I don't believe that it's Buglum's know-how. A Buglum couldn't have made that cigar box disappear right before my very eyes. I wonder if I's conjured. Maybe I'm one of these here spiritual trance mediums.
Holds out both hands toward table like a hypnotist.
Move. Move, doggone you, move. If I is a medium, I've done lost my power. I seen a man at the opera house make the tables and chairs and everything else in the room move whenever he told them to.
Turns to screen.
Move. Move.
Dunn wiggles screen.
Great day in the morning. I'm a medium. Move. Stop. Look at that thing, doing just what I says. I got the whole house conjured.
Makes motions like hypnotist towards screen. Every time her hands go up, Dunn makes the screen go up. Finally, the screen moves slowly toward the fireplace, Aunt Paradise continuing her gestures violently. Dunn exits in fireplace.
I'm a wizard. That's what I is.
Crosses to screen timidly.
Got power over everything.
Touches screen and jumps back frightened.
Now that's what made that box of cigars turn into air. It just felt my presence.
Takes screen and places it in original position upright. Enter Billy and Mrs. Clinger from right intermediate entrance.
Just to think that we're engaged. It's too good to be true. And we'll be so happy, Billy. Just you and me and Angelina.
Angelina?
Yes, just we three. I'll go right in the parlour and announce our engagement.
Oh, let's not announce it right away. Let's keep them guessing for a few days. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll announce our engagement right before Bright's wedding.
Isn't that romantic? And just to think that I'm engaged again.
On Paradise, where is Mr. Early?
In the parlour. He's dancing old grizzly bear.
Looks off, right upper exit.
Look at him. Look at him.
Tell him I'm looking for him in here. Tell him as soon as the dance is through.
Yes, sir.
Exit, right upper exit.
When we are married, shall we live in New York?
No, I think I'll move to Salt Lake City.
To Salt Lake? Why do you want to move there?
I'm gonna join the Mormons.
The idea! But if you do that, I'll join them too. And so will Angelina.
Dear little Angelina.
Clenches fists and shakes them. Enter Lulu from right upper entrance.
Mrs. Clinger, Angelina has gone to sleep, and Mrs. Perrington-Shine sent me to tell you.
Thank you so much, Lulu. I'll go to her at once. Wait for me, Billy.
Exit, right upper exit. Exit Lulu left, flirting with Billy.
I can see my finish with little Angelina. I'll have to put her to bed every night at 9 o'clock. But her mother's an heiress, and goodness knows I need the money.
Enter Doris from right upper entrance.
Billy.
Doris.
I've been waiting for you to come and dance with me.
And believe me, I've wanted to.
I didn't think that you'd neglect me this way after what you said to me this afternoon.
I haven't neglected you. I just heard some bad news, that's all.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
A little financial difficulty.
You are in trouble?
Yes, and pretty badly.
Then I want to tell you my answer to what you asked me this afternoon. I will be your wife whenever you wish. I'll share your trouble with you.
But Doris, I've lost a lot of money.
Do you think I accepted you on account of your money? You have your position. We'll save together.
Doris, you're a dear, but I couldn't ask you to sacrifice yourself.
It's no sacrifice. I'm willing to marry at once.
Pause.
Well, why don't you say something? Billy, don't you want me?
I want you more than anything else in the world. Doris, you're all right. Pure gold all through.
Billy starts to embrace her when Gwendolyn enters.
I beg your pardon.
Don't mention it. I was just going back to the dance.
They want you to play a two-step.
All right, I'll go. Wait for me, Billy.
Exit, right upper exit.
You aren't dancing this evening?
No, I've been out looking at the moon.
Alone? I don't think it any fun to look at the moon alone.
Pause.
And I haven't seen the moon all evening.
It's still shining.
I'm afraid to go out on the veranda alone at night.
I'll go with you. Come on.
I hope Mamma stays in the parlours. Mamma doesn't approve of my going out on the balcony in the moonlight with a young man.
It's different with me.
Yes, I suppose it is, for I'm going to marry you, and that makes it different, doesn't it?
Marry me?
Yes, Mamma is opposed to it, of course, so I've determined to elope. She has no right to blight all my future life, has she?
Of course not. But eloping is such an awful thing.
I think it's too dear for anything. I'd just love to elope.
But do you really care for me?
Of course I do. I'm perfectly wild about you. You're such a cute little man.
I'm afraid that your mamma doesn't care to look at me in the light of a son-in-law.
That makes no difference. Mamma isn't going to marry you, is she?
I hope not.
And I've simply set my heart on eloping. Come on, I want to see the moon.
Crosses to right intermediate exit.
I wonder which of them I'm engaged to.
Exit with Gwendolyn, right intermediate exit. Enter Dunn from fireplace.
Well, they're all enjoying themselves down here. I'll just take a glance at the rooms upstairs. All them fancy dressers must have a bunch of jewels and things that'll come in handy for me.
Exit left. Enter Hemachus from right upper entrance.
I am quite surprised at father. He's in there, dancing and leading in the frivolity of the occasion, and he seems to be enjoying himself. Ah, father, I fear that it is well for you that Cousin Brighton is married only once in a while.
Enter Lulu, right upper entrance.
Oh, excuse me, sir. I didn't know anyone was here.
Well, there isn't anyone here except myself.
Lulu, coming down to him.
Only yourself.
Pausing, she looks at him. He catches her eye and looks away quickly. Bashful business.
And myself.
If you are about to pursue any of your household duties, don't let me interrupt you.
I was just going to lock up the windows for the night. Oh, Mr. Hemachus.
Yes?
I've got something in my eye.
Dear me, let me see.
Crosses to her.
It hurts something fierce.
I fail to perceive anything whatsoever.
I can't see at all.
Takes his hand.
Dear me, I am very sorry.
Takes her other hand.
I can see better now.
And does your eye still pain you?
It's not as bad. I hope it won't disfigure my eyes. Some folks say that I have such pretty eyes.
Do they?
Yes, but you don't think so, do you?
They seem to be quite normal to me. Possibly the corona is...
Say, where are you from anyway, Mr. Hemachus?
Crosses to left.
I am a student at Drinkwater University.
Are you one of them wild, dashing fly-by-night students?
I'm proud to say that I am. I am the sergeant-at-arms of my class.
Isn't it a rather funny class?
Funny? Not at all. It is characterized by an exceedingly solemn demeanour and a fixity of purpose most indomitable.
Oh, quit your cutting up.
Have you ever been at Drinkwater?
Comes close to her.
No, sir. I've never saw a student close-like before.
Lulu, I think that I could learn to like you. We might become very good friends. The girls at college all say that I'm such an awful cut-up.
You're all of that, all right.
Mrs. Perrington-Shine. Off, right upper exit.
Lulu!
Yes, ma'am, I'm coming.
Crosses to door, right upper exit.
Don't cut up too much while you're here, Hemachus. I'm afraid you're too giddy for us poor girls.
Laughs and exits, right upper exit.
How very peculiar. I wonder what father would say. And mother. Poor mother. She would enjoy this festive occasion so much. It's too bad that she had to stay at home with poor little brother Cheops. Father does not seem to miss her, and that poor unfortunate crazy woman who imagines that she is father's wife. How very strange.
Crosses to right intermediate exit.
I think I'll go out on the veranda and look at the moon and meditate.
Starts to exit, right intermediate exit. Gwendolyn, outside, right lower exit.
Billy, please stop. What would Mamma say?
There seems to be someone out on the veranda. I wonder if they are looking at the moon and meditating.
Billy Jackson, you're just awful.
Someone is in need of help, I dare say. Probably I can assist her.
Exit, right intermediate exit. Enter Dunn from left with a suitcase.
Gee, what a rich haul. Diamonds, wedding presents, real lace and rolls of money. The guy who's getting married suspects something is wrong. Maybe he'll start a search. I'll have to put a decoy on someone else. Then I'll make a clean getaway.
Exit in fireplace. Enter Billy from right intermediate entrance.
Little Hemachus will keep Gwendolyn quiet for a few minutes at least. She wants me to elope. Each one of the three expects me to marry her. I can't marry them all. I'm not triplets. Poor little Doris.
Sinks in chair at left.
She's the queen of the bunch. Wanted to help me because she thought that I was in trouble.
Yawns and stretches himself in chair.
I wish she had Mrs. Clinger's money. Then that would fix things beautifully. Gee, I'm sleepy. I'll have to go over to the city the first thing in the morning and see about the Foreign National. Maybe it's a mistake after all. Then I won't have to marry Mrs. Clinger.
Nearly asleep.
That will leave me free to marry Doris. Pretty little Doris to the daisies. Doris. Doris.
Sleeps. Enter Dunn from fireplace.
I'll drop this string of diamonds in this guy's pocket, then if there's any trouble, he'll be the goat.
Puts necklace in Billy's pocket.
I guess I've got everything worth getting now. I might as well make a getaway.
Crosses to right intermediate exit.
Somebody out there. This bunch don't do nothing but set on the porch and spoon. Back to the chimbley, Sandy Claus, back to the chimbley.
Exits in fireplace. Gwendolyn, appearing in door, right intermediate entrance.
Billy! Where are you, Billy?
Enters.
Oh, there he is. And he is asleep. Isn't he a dear? Billy!
Takes his hand.
We'll take another round, just like the...
Gwendolyn, shaking him.
Billy, it's your little Gwen.
Billy, jumping up.
What's the matter? I had a horrible dream. I thought I was being married.
To me?
No, to Mrs. Clinger and Angelina.
No wonder you thought that it was a horrible dream.
I thought that you were showing the moon to little Hemachus.
He does nothing but talk astronomy. I'd rather show the moon to you.
Hemachus, appearing in the doorway, right intermediate entrance.
There's a cloud over the moon.
Gwendolyn, pulling Billy, right intermediate entrance.
Oh, Billy, come on. I do want to see the cloud over the moon.
Hemachus, coming centre.
But the moon's light is entirely obscured.
I always shine the brightest when the moon is dark. Come on, Gwen.
I hope Mamma stays in the parlours.
Exeunt Billy and Gwendolyn.
How very peculiar.
Enter Mrs. Perrington-Shine, Malachi, Mrs. Clinger, Solomon, Doris, Miss Longnecker, Brighton, and Amy.
Ah, little Hemachus, here you are.
Yes, Father, here I am.
I am rather tired, Mrs. Perrington-Shine. I think I'll say good night.
It's rather late. I think we had all better retire. Professor, where is your wife?
Semiramis? She's taking care of little Cheops.
She was dancing the one-step a moment ago.
Oh, yes, to be sure. I think she is in the drawing-room.
Enter Dodo.
Mrs. Perrington-Shine, I don't know when I've had such a delightful evening.
We are so glad you were able to come. I suppose that little Cheops is better?
Cheops?
Oh, yes, your little Cheops. He's better, isn't he?
I didn't know I had a little Cheops.
He had a fever, you know.
Oh, yes, I remember now. You see, Mrs. Perrington-Shine, I'm always forgetting little things like that.
Where is Gwendolyn?
And where is Mr. Billy Jackson?
They are out on the veranda. He is showing her the moon under a cloud.
Gwendolyn! Gwendolyn, I say.
Enter Gwendolyn and Billy from right intermediate entrance.
Here I am, Mamma.
I told you distinctly not to go out on the veranda, and with a young man. I'm frustrated, Gwendolyn, frustrated.
It's only Billy, Mamma.
I see it is. Young man, what is the meaning of this?
Well, you see, Mrs. Shine, we were,
Mrs. Perrington-Shine, please.
Yes, of course. Mrs. Perrington-Shine. We were only looking at the moon.
But the moon was under a cloud.
That will do, Hemachus.
Yes, Father.
Gwendolyn, I am waiting for an explanation. Why have you disobeyed me?
Why, Mamma, it was perfectly proper. You see, we're engaged.
Engaged.
Mrs. Perrington-Shine, Mr. Jackson is engaged to me.
Billy, is this true?
Comes down to Billy's right.
He proposed to me this very evening, and I accepted him.
There's some mistake.
There is no mistake. I've had enough experience, Mr. Billy Jackson, to know a proposal when I hear one.
Mamma, he is engaged to me.
Billy Jackson, I never want to see you again.
You are welcome to him, Miss Gwendolyn. I never want to see him again. Mr. Jackson, our engagement is broken. If you want her now, you are at liberty, sir. You are at liberty.
Mr. Jackson, there is no use asking you to explain. I have only one thing to say to you, and that is...
Loud peal of doorbell off left. Music, the same as for Solomon's first entrance.
Lulu!
Enter Lulu from right. She crosses to left and exits. Mrs. Semiramis Spiggot, outside left.
I want to come in. I want my husband.
I'll speak to Mrs. Perrington-Shine.
Enter Lulu from left.
What is it, Lulu? Who is it?
It's a lady with some children. She says she wants her husband.
She must have gotten into the wrong house. Her husband isn't here.
Music louder. Enter Mrs. Spiggot, followed by Eupepsia Spiggot and 5 other children, walking one behind the other. Mrs. Spiggot takes centre, the children group around her.
He is here, sailing under false pretenses. He is here and with another wife. I'll have my rights.
I am Mrs. Perrington-Shine. You've made a mistake. Your husband isn't here.
Mrs. Spiggot, pointing to Solomon, who takes a step backward, and, as Billy is beside him, Mrs. Spiggot is pointing to Billy.
There he is, the false, deceitful wretch, cutting up like a gay Lothario here at the wedding feast. Children, see your father. See his disgrace.
Oh, Father! Father!
This is no place for me. I'll return to the hotel. Tomorrow I'll get a divorce. I'll see if there is any law in this land for a confiding wife, the mother of 7.
The mother of 7? Oh, Billy.
Oh,
The mother
Billy.
of 7. Billy.
Billy wilts.
She's not talking to me. I never saw her before. There's some mistake.
Come, children. This is no place for us. My heart is breaking.
Crosses up to door left, then turns.
And I thought that you were a model man.
Exit left with Eupepsia and children.
Now, Mr. Jackson, will you be good enough to explain?
It's all a mistake.
Your wife and children a mistake? You are a villain, sir. I must ask you to leave my house.
Oh, Billy, can't you explain?
I feel faint.
Clasps her hand to breast.
My diamonds! I've been robbed. My diamond necklace. I had it just a moment ago. I've been robbed. Billy Jackson, where is my necklace?
What do you mean to infer, Mrs. Clinger?
I had it just now. I've been with no one except that man. I demand that he be searched.
Lively music, quick action.
Other things are missing too.
Enter Aunt Paradise from left.
They sure is. Somebody stole my supper. Somebody took $10.67 out of my lavender-colored hose.
Search him! Search him!
I'm perfectly willing. Come on and search me, Bride.
It's absurd.
I insist on it.
And so do I.
Brighton crosses to Billy and searches him. Billy takes off coat and hands it to Brighton, who searches it and draws out the necklace from pocket.
I told you so. I told you so.
Call the police.
Billy, what does this mean?
Drops coat on stage.
First, I'm engaged to 3. I lose my money in the Fourth National Bank. I find a wife and half a dozen kids, and now I'm a thief. Don't send for the police, send for the keeper of the insane asylum. Tell him to prepare padded cell number 23 for little Billy.
Quick curtain. End of Act 2. Act 3 of The Hoodoo by Walter Ben Hare. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Act 3. Scene, same set as Act 2. Enter Brighton at Rise, and crosses to telephone on wall at right. Takes down receiver. Brighton, in telephone.
Hello, Central? Hello? I wonder if Central's gone to sleep. Hello? What's the matter with the girl anyhow? Hello? Oh, yes, I wanted you, Central. Give me 6696 Main. Yes, the police station. Thank you.
Dunn appears in front of fireplace and listens.
Hello? Is this the police station? Oh, yes. Thank you. I want to speak to the sergeant. All right. Hello, Sergeant. Is that you? This is Early. Yes, I know that it's early in the morning, but this is Mr. Early speaking to you. I was there this afternoon, you remember? Yes, about that detective. We need one up here right away. Our wedding presents have been stolen. Oh, he came up an hour ago? Well, if he did, he failed to make connections, for he hasn't arrived yet. Oh, all right. Send a couple of men if you can. It's most important. Yes, we've missed other things, and we think that the thief is hiding in the house or the grounds. All right. Much obliged. Goodbye.
Dunn disappears. Enter Billy from right upstage entrance.
Did you ever see anything like this, Bright?
Sinks in chair at right.
You're up against it, Bill. I know you didn't take those things. I'll vouch for that. But what on earth made you propose to 3 girls all at once?
I didn't. I proposed separately.
And they all accepted you. Poor old Bill.
Hand on his shoulder.
Mrs. Perrington-Shine thinks that I'm the burglar, as well as the heartbreaker. She's ordered me to leave the house at once.
Where are you going?
Going to pack up and catch the 12:10 train back to the city.
I'll go up with you. I've just telephoned to the police.
What did they say?
The sergeant said he sent a man up here an hour ago.
Maybe he's the one who stole the things.
Oh, no, that's impossible. He's a policeman.
I've heard of policemen who stole. Well, I've got to pack if I want to get that train.
I can't tell you how sorry I am, old man.
Ah, it's all right. I'm sure Doris doesn't think that I'm a burglar. Coming?
Sure thing.
Exeunt left. Enter Dunn from fireplace. Dunn, singing.
They're after me, to capture me is everyone's desire. I got to get away. Got all the goods packed in this little suitcase.
Sees Billy's coat on floor.
Hello, what's this?
Searches it.
Not a cent.
Sees scarab pin.
Nothing but a dinky little stick pin. Well, I can use that in my business.
Pin scarab on coat.
Now to vamoose.
Sees Brighton's coat, cap, etc. up centre.
I might just as well disguise myself as a gentleman.
Puts on auto coat and cap.
I wonder if my touring car is waiting at the gate.
Puts on gloves and goggles.
Now I'm the little chauffeur, all right.
Picks up grip. Enter Brighton from left. Quickly comes down centre and meets Dunn.
Well, my man, what do you want?
Excuse me, is this where the wedding party is?
This is Mrs. Perrington-Shine's. What can I do for you?
Nothing.
Well, what are you doing here?
Dunn, mysteriously, putting finger to lips.
Shh.
Oh, you're from headquarters.
Yes, a long way from headquarters. Don't you know me?
Yes, I do now.
Dunn, to audience.
Well, wouldn't that make you freeze in summer? He says he knows me.
Have you been here long?
Not very.
The police sergeant told me you were coming.
He did.
To audience.
I wonder how he knew it.
I thought at first you were the burglar.
You did?
Yes, funny, wasn't it?
Yes, awfully. Do I look like a burglar?
Well, you do, a little.
That's because I'm in disguise.
I thought that couldn't be your natural face.
Where is our man?
Well, that's what I sent for you for, to find him. It seems funny that I took a policeman for a burglar.
Oh, since the New York exposures are almost one and the same thing.
We've lost 3 diamond necklaces, several pocketbooks, a set of solid silver, and cut glass, and all our wedding presents.
He didn't miss much, did he?
We have been guarding the front and back door. He's in the house and can't escape any other way.
Where could he hide?
Probably in the attic, or in the kitchen, or washroom.
Are you sure he's in the house?
As sure as I am that you're here.
Well, I reckon he's here then. Shall we look upstairs?
I'll leave everything in your hands.
Much obliged. So everything is in my hands?
Smiles.
Of course. Go as far as you like.
I'll do that, all right.
We've heard several suspicious noises in the fireplace. Mr. Meek got his gun and wanted to shoot down the chimney, but I persuaded him not to disturb the ladies.
Dunn, wringing his hand heartily.
That's right. Never shoot and disturb the ladies.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll make a thorough search upstairs, and you guard that front door. There's a valuable wallet of papers in that desk there. Keep your eye on it.
Crosses to left.
You bet I will.
If he tries to run out, shoot, and shoot hard.
Exit left. Dunn crosses to table and opens drawer. After a pause, while Dunn is working at drawer, Billy enters from left unobserved, sees Dunn, and hides behind screen. Dunn, searching drawer.
I know it's here somewhere. I saw him when he put it in here. I've got it. No, it's only a pack of cards.
Enter Dodo, right upper entrance. She sees Dunn, starts, then stands watching him.
The burglar. What are you doing in that drawer?
Nothing, lady. So help me, I wasn't doing nothing.
Turns. Dodo, recognizing him.
Great heavens, it's done.
Dodo, the Dazzling Daisy. Well, I'll be blowed.
Still at your old tricks, eh? I thought that you were earning an honest living in Canada.
What are you doing here?
That's nothing to you.
Oh, ain't it? It's a pity if I can't ask my own wife what she's doing.
That's enough of that. I'm here as a guest of Mr. Early's wedding.
Oh, no, you ain't. You're up to some little game, my lady. I haven't been your beloved husband for 8 years, not to know all your little schemes. You're no more of an invited guest here than I am.
Well, it's no concern of yours anyway.
Oh, and ain't it? You're up to your old tricks, me Dazzling Daisy, and I want my share.
Your share? You're crazy. You have no claim on me.
Do you want me to call the whole blamed party in and to tell them that you are my wife?
Oh, for goodness sake, no. Are you going to molest me always?
There's something crooked going on here, and I'm going to lay low until I find out what it is. Anyhow, you're the main crook, I know that much.
You'd better be careful how you address me. What's to prevent my calling in the party and telling them that I caught you rifling through that drawer?
Do it. Do it. They'd laugh at you for your pains. I'm paid for examining that drawer. I'm no burglar. I'm a private detective. It's my business to find the burglar. Maybe I'm talking to her now.
You are no detective. You found yourself in hot water and are trying to pass for an officer. I know your tricks of old.
What of it? I know about you, too. You're palming yourself off as the old professor guy's wife. I heard him call you Mrs. Spiggot. You ain't no more Mrs. Spiggot than I am. You're Mrs. Dunn, and will be as long as I choose to contest the divorce.
Of course I'm not Mrs. Spiggot.
If you are, I can have you up for bigamy.
Dunn, why can't we work together?
I'm afraid of your tricks. I wouldn't trust you out of my sight. I know you, Daisy. I guess I ought to. We've been married long enough. Come now, what's your little game?
That's nothing to you. I know that you've made a big haul in this house. Those Tiffany necklaces are worth thousands, and you've swept everything else into your little bag. Now you go and let me alone. I won't say a word.
That's no way to talk to your faithful little husband. You're up to something, and I want my share.
Why do you hound me this way? Why can't you let me alone? Why did I ever meet you?
You'd better ask yourself why you ran away and left me. I might be a crook, my lady, but I have always played fair.
Comes close to her and grabs her wrist.
Have you?
Dodo, turning away from him.
Let me go! How dare you!
You ran away and went on the stage. I've kept track of you. I know all about that lawyer guy, Maurice Cohen, who's trying to get your divorce for you. I've fought it, and I'm going to keep on fighting it. I've got the money, and you know it.
I was a fool not to take his advice and brand you as a habitual criminal. I guess that would give me my divorce.
Oh, no, you wasn't a fool. If you'd do a thing like that, you'd be the fool. If you ever bring up the subject of my criminal record, what do you think I'd tell about yours?
There is no use quarreling. Meet me in the garden tomorrow morning at 5, and I'll tell you what I'm doing here.
No tricks, my lady?
No tricks. Hush, someone is coming. We mustn't be seen together.
Crosses to right upper exit.
Tomorrow in the garden at 5.
Exit, right upper exit.
I'll be there. To think of meeting my little Dodo here. Well, we're both of us butting into high society. I've made a clean sweep and have got all the swag in a dress suitcase. I'll just slip away now and then come back to see little wifey in the morning.
Starts to exit left. Billy, coming from behind the screen.
Just a moment, Mr. Dunn.
Dunn, rushing toward Billy, dropping suitcase.
Let me at you.
Billy, thrusting revolver in his face.
It's loaded, my man.
Dunn, slowly lowering arms.
What do you want?
Sit down.
Dunn starts toward him. Billy pushes revolver at him. Dunn seats himself slowly, left centre.
What do you want?
I'll let you know in a minute. First, I want those diamond necklaces and all the other plunder you've taken from this house.
I ain't got 'em. I ain't got a thing.
Oh, yes, you have. You just said you had all the swag in your dress suitcase. Too bad to wrinkle your dress suit that way. I'll just take that suitcase.
Enter Aunt Paradise, right upper entrance. She sees Dunn after she gets well on stage.
Oh, my lawsy, mousy, great day of the trumpet. Help! Murder! Fire! Police!
Enter Brighton from right intermediate entrance.
What's the matter?
I've caught the burglar.
That isn't the burglar. That's the detective.
Yes, sir, that's what I told him. I said...
That will do for you. Just look in that dress suitcase, Paradise.
Dunn, starting to rise.
I'll show you.
Billy, thrusting gun at him.
Sit down, Dunn. You're done.
Aunt Paradise, opening suitcase.
Great day in the morning. Here's the diamond necklaces, and here's the candelabrum, and Miss Doris's lace, and the wedding presents. And glory be, here's my $10.67. That's the burglar. That's him, sure as you're born.
Call an officer, Brighton.
There's one outside. Did you search him?
We'll let the officer do that.
Brighton, coming close to Dunn.
Hello. He's wearing my scarab pin.
That's the one he got from me.
Take it if you want it.
No, thank you. Scarabs never did agree with my complexion. You take it, Billy.
I never did like scarabs. I've heard that they're unlucky. You may have it, Paradise.
No, sir. I don't want no artificial bugs round me.
Enter Solomon from left.
Ah, I thought I heard a cry for help.
We've caught the burglar.
And have you recovered the missing property?
Yes, everything.
Exit Aunt Paradise, right upper exit.
But how did Mrs. Clinger's diamond necklace get into this young man's pocket?
Our friend here evidently slipped it in when Billy was trying to decide which girl he wanted.
Solomon, seeing scarab in Dunn's coat.
He has my scarab.
You can have it. I don't want it.
Very well.
Takes it and pins it on his coat.
It's liable to bring you bad luck, Professor.
I know it. I shall bury it immediately. The bad luck only lasts for 24 hours, and after that time the owner of the pin enjoys the most bountiful generosity of the Egyptian gods.
I feel better since you took that thing away from me.
Enter Lulu from left. Music, same as for Solomon's entrance in Act 1. Soft.
Excuse me for butting in, but that lady with all them children is here again. She insists on seeing Professor Spiggot.
Tell her that he's gone back to Egypt.
Do nothing of the sort. It's my wife, Semiramis. Cousin Brighton, we've had enough deception. I'll explain to my wife the true status of affairs.
Brighton, going to Solomon.
Oh, see here. Don't do that.
Billy, joining Brighton.
Don't give the whole thing away.
Lulu, show the lady in.
Dunn crosses to right, silently.
Please don't, Lulu.
Wait a moment. We found the thief and the missing jewels. Help me a while longer, please, Cousin Solomon.
Exit done at right intermediate exit.
Ah! The man! The burglar! He's gone!
All rushing to right intermediate exit and looking down.
Head him off! Stop him! Please!
Lulu, Billy and Brighton rush out, right intermediate exit. Solomon starts to follow them. Enter Mrs. Spiggot from left.
Solomon!
Yes, my love.
End music.
You were trying to run away from me.
Oh, no. There has been a horrible robbery here. The thief just escaped out of that door onto the balcony. My cousin pursued him, and I was just about to follow his example.
Follow the thief's example and escape?
No, follow my cousin.
I couldn't stay away any longer. Oh, Solomon, Solomon, you have broken my heart.
I never meant to do so, I'm sure. The fault was quite unintentional, I assure you.
But in spite of all, I'll not leave you here. I'll not desert you. For the sake of little Cheops and little Ptolemy, Ramesses and Isis, to say nothing of Eupepsia and Hemachus, for their innocent little sakes, I have come to you for an explanation.
My dear, there has been a terrible mistake.
Oh, Solomon, Solomon, how could you?
That's what I ask myself. How could I?
Then you do not attempt to deny it. It's true. You have another wife.
That's a mistake. I do deny it most emphatically. You are the only wife I have at present, Semiramis.
I received a telegram, a most horrible telegram, from little Hymachus. Oh, Solomon, Solomon!
What did little Hymachus say?
He said that you had another wife here. Now what have you to say? What explanation can you give?
I never was clever at explanations.
I want the truth. Do you hear? The truth.
Enter Hymachus from left.
Father!
Hymachus, little Hymachus. Now we shall have some light on the subject.
Solomon, aside.
Why didn't I allow Lulu to tell her that I had gone to Egypt?
Mother, you received my telegram?
Yes, and I came at once. Oh, what did it mean? Where is his other wife?
Mother, I made a mistake. There isn't any other wife.
That's what I've been trying to say all along.
I sent that telegram under a misapprehension. There is a poor lady here, a guest at the wedding, who is non compos mentis.
Who told you that?
Oh, everyone knows it. She imagines that she is everybody's wife. It is a peculiar hallucination. Cousin Brighton tried to humour the poor thing, and I sent you that telegram before I realised the true state of affairs.
Are you sure that you realize the true state of affairs now?
Of course he does. Cousin Brighton will corroborate the story.
Enter Billy and Brighton from right intermediate entrance.
He got away.
Well, we have all the stolen goods. Let him go.
Cousin Brighton, this is Semiramis, my wife.
So glad to meet you, Cousin Semiramis. So glad to welcome you to the wedding party. Let me present Mr. Jackson.
Please, I'm sure.
Cousin Solomon said that you were detained at home with little Cheops.
I was detained at home, but I received a telegram
from little Hymachus. He misunderstood the ravings of the poor lady upstairs. She imagines that she is everybody's wife. Why, she even thought that she was engaged to marry Mr. Jackson here.
Yes, it is very unfortunate.
It is very unfortunate.
Probably tomorrow she will imagine that she is my wife.
I'm so bewildered that I hardly know what to do.
Go upstairs and rest. It's late anyhow, and you've had a tiresome journey.
Where are the other children, Mother?
They are waiting in the hall.
Crosses to left.
Come in, children. We are reconciled. We shall stay here tonight.
Enter Eupepsia, followed by 4 other children.
Eupepsia, my love.
Kisses her.
And Osiris.
Kiss.
Isis.
Kiss.
Ptolemy.
Kiss.
And little Ramses.
Kiss. Brighton, ringing handbell.
Quite a little family reunion.
Solomon, can you ever forgive me for doubting you?
Of course I can. The doubt was natural.
Enter Lulu from right.
Lulu, take this lady and the children up to Mr. Spigot's room.
Up to his room, Mr. Early?
Points to Solomon.
Of course.
Well, what do you know about that? My, but he's a gay old bird.
Crosses to door left.
Good night, gentlemen. Solomon, have you forgiven me?
Entirely, my angel.
Come, children.
Crosses to door left.
And to think that I ever doubted you.
Exit left with Hemachus, Eupepsia and children. Billy, shaking Solomon's right hand.
You see how easy it was?
Brighton, shaking Solomon's left hand.
Just as easy. I wish I could get rid of my troubles as easy as you have yours.
And look at me. None of the girls speak to me now.
Enter Aunt Paradise with telegram.
Here's one of these telegraph things for Mr. Jackson.
More bad news.
Opens telegram.
Hooray! Congratulate me. Paradise, you're a dream of heaven. Here's $5.
Searches pockets.
Bright, lend me $5.
Takes bill and gives it to Aunt Paradise, who grins.
Listen to this. The failure of the 4th National does not affect us. All our deposits withdrawn a week ago. It's from Father.
Shakes hands with men.
I'm not a pauper. Oh, I breathe again.
Rushes round and hugs Aunt Paradise.
I'm the happiest man in the country.
Rushes to left.
Let me go. I want to tell Doris the good news. Hooray! Oh, Doris! Doris!
Exit left.
He giving me $5. That man ain't so rambunctious as I thought he was. Did you catch the burglar, Mr. Early?
No, but we've recovered all the stolen property.
Glory be. Stolen property all recovered. I'm so happy that I feel like dancing the grizzly bear.
Got your money back, did you?
Yes, sir. Say, boss, every cent of my $10.67 was right there in that lavender-colored hose. Miss Shine done say for me to put out the lights and go to bed.
We'll put out the lights, Paradise.
All right, sir. I certainly am glad that I recovered that lavender-colored hose.
Exit left.
Now, Cousin Brighton, you must get that horrible woman out of the house at once. Suppose Semiramis meets her.
Then enter Mrs. Spiggot, very much excited, with a woman's hat and shoulder cape, which she is tearing to pieces.
Don't speak to me. Take him away. Take him out of my sight. Oh, you villain, you Mormon. You.
Whatever is the matter?
Matter? Oh, you villain, you man with 2 wives. That maid showed me to your room, and what do I find? I find this and this in your room.
Brighton aside.
I told Lulu to remove those things.
I'll take the children and go at once.
Wait a moment. Listen to reason.
Their father is a gay deceiver, a Mormon, a roue.
But, Semiramis...
Don't speak to me. How dare you stay in the same room with me?
Did you say you found those things in your husband's room?
Mrs. Spiggot, tearing them into bits.
Yes, I did. You can't deceive me again. I'll leave this house. I'll go home to mother. I'll get a divorce.
The explanation is ridiculously simple.
Explanation? There can be no explanation. I won't listen to you. I won't.
Crosses to door left.
Children, my poor fatherless darlings, come here.
Enter HWHemachus, and the children.
This house is no place for us. We've been deceived.
Enter Lulu from right upper entrance.
Mrs. Spiggot, please listen to reason. Cousin Solomon is incapable of deception.
That's what I always thought. But is he?
My dear, I am sure Cousin Brighton can explain.
Of course I can. Do you see that pin that your husband has on his coat?
Yes, it's Ka, the sacred scarab.
Am I wearing that pin?
Takes it off.
No wonder you won't believe me.
Takes pin to Giordinia up centre.
Thus do I restore thee for 24 hours to thy native element.
Buries pin.
Now, Cousin Semiramis, when Lulu took you upstairs just now, she put you into the wrong room.
Lulu, come here.
Lulu crosses to right centre. Brighton follows her.
When you took me upstairs just now, did you take me to Professor Spigot's room?
Lulu, holding her hand back of her for tip from Brighton.
Let me think. So many guests are here.
Brighton puts Bill in Lulu's hand.
Why, of course I didn't. I made an awful mistake. I showed you into the wrong room. That room belongs to the other lady.
Is this true?
Yes, ma'am, of course it is. Mistakes will happen, you know.
Crosses to Mrs. Spiggot.
Professor Spigot's room is right across the hall.
Solomon and Brighton shake hands, unobserved.
Can it be that I have made a mistake?
No, ma'am, it was all my fault.
Take her up again, Lulu, and be sure to show her the right room this time.
Mrs. Spiggot, coming to Solomon.
Oh, Solomon, Solomon, can you ever forgive me?
Solomon turns away. Lulu, coming to Brighton and speaking aside.
Which room shall I put her in?
In Hemachus' room.
All right, I'm on. Ah, you men, you men!
For little Cheop's sake, for the sake of little Osiris and Isis and Ptolemy and Hemachus and Eupepsia, for the sake of little Ramesses, forgive me.
Father!
Father!
And you'll never suspect me again?
Never.
And you'll never doubt my word?
Never.
Then I'll forgive you.
Embraces her and children in a bunch.
Now, lady, I'll show you to the right room. It's across the hall from the other one.
Come, children. Oh, Solomon, you see me in the dust, figuratively speaking, in the dust at your feet.
Crosses left.
Oh, anyone is apt to make a mistake.
And to think I mistrusted you. Solomon, you are a king among men.
Exit left, followed by children and Lulu.
I believe it was all the fault of the scarab.
I seem to be having just as bad luck without it as I had when I wore it.
You found the missing property, and your money is safe.
Yes, but I haven't got rid of Dodo.
Well, do so at once. Semiramis must have no further cause for suspicion.
You're right. I'll write Dodo a check for $30,000, get my letters from her, and tell her to go. I hate to lose the money, but I wouldn't have Amy learn the truth for twice the sum.
Sits at desk and writes check. Enter Dodo from right upper entrance.
Hello, boys. How's hubby?
Don't call me hubby. What would Semiramis say?
I'm getting tired of all this comedy, Bright. Give me the money, take the letters, let me say luck to you, and be on my way.
I'm writing your check now.
$30,000, remember.
It's a pile of money for a few letters.
Yes, but these are such warm letters.
Where are they?
Right here. I never let them get away from me.
Well, here's your check.
Starts to tear it from book. Enter Billy from left with overcoat, hat and grip.
What are you doing, Bright?
Paying $30,000 to get rid of the Dazzling Daisy.
Oh, but that's not necessary now.
What do you mean?
You don't have to pay her a cent.
I don't?
Not a red.
And since when did you get wise to our private affairs, Mr. Cupid Jackson?
About half an hour ago.
You mean?
You know what I mean. Half an hour ago I was behind that screen and heard all of your little conversation with the late Mr. Dunn.
Dunn?
Yes, you're Dunn. And so is he. We've caught him and he's made a full confession.
I'll sue you for a breach of promise, Mr. Brighton Early.
You'll do nothing of the kind. When Brighton was carrying on his innocent little flirtation with you, you were a married woman.
Married?
Well, that's the word. This little Dazzling Daisy is the burglar's wife, and has been for the last 8 years.
It isn't true.
Oh, yes, it is. We've caught your husband. Do you want him to confront you?
Heavens, no.
Then the best thing for you to do is to catch the 12:10 train back to the city. We might sue you for blackmail.
It was only a joke. I'll go at once.
Wait and get your things.
Let me go.
Throws letters on floor.
There are your letters. You can't hold me now.
We don't want to. You just have time to catch the train. Good night, and have a pleasant trip.
You'll not file a complaint?
Of course not.
Thank you. Goodbye. Goodbye forever.
Exit left.
Professor, there goes the Dazzler.
Thank heavens. Now I'll see Semiramis and explain the whole thing to her.
You better not. Let sleeping dogs lie.
Probably that would be best. Oh, what an exciting evening this has been. If my Semiramis knew the truth, I wonder what she would say. My, but this has been an eventful day. I think I'll go upstairs.
I think it would be the wiser plan to say nothing to your wife about Dodo.
I suppose you are right.
If she ever suspected that you gave us your permission to call the Dazzling Daisy your wife.
What would Semiramis say?
Good night, young men.
Exit left.
Good night, Cousin Solomon.
You've come out of all your troubles like a phoenix. I wish I were as lucky.
Maybe I can straighten things out for you. I've been doing so much straightening out today that I feel like a professional.
Nothing doing for me, I guess. Mrs. Perrington-Shine has put me out. Having my things all packed up, and I'm ready to catch the 12:10.
I'm awfully sorry, old man. My wedding won't seem like a wedding at all, unless you are here to support my fainting form.
Sorry, but it can't be helped.
Poor little Doris. Do you know, Billy, I think that she really cares for you.
No, she don't. Nobody cares for me now. Maybe someday she'll learn that I wasn't entirely to blame.
Why don't you see her before you go?
I tried to, but she wouldn't let me.
Enter Doris from left, with travelling coat, hat and suitcase. She stays at back, unobserved.
And, Billy, I think you really care about her.
I know I do. If I can't win little Doris, I never want to speak to another girl as long as I live. Why, Bright, when she heard that I was in trouble and lost my money, she stood right up and said that she didn't care for the money. She said that she would marry me at once, and that we could save together.
Then why on earth did you propose to Mrs. Clinger?
I don't know. The impulse of the moment, I guess. And I was wearing that scarab pin. Maybe that accounts for it.
Didn't you fall in love with her, too?
With Mrs. Clinger? Never. I never saw a girl that I'd give a second thought to. Except Doris.
Billy.
Doris! You've heard?
Blue moonlight through window on Billy and Doris.
Everything.
And you believe me? You'll give me another chance?
The same old chance is open. I have always believed in you, Billy.
But Mrs. Perrington-Shine has ordered me to leave the house.
I'm leaving too.
And you don't think that I'm the burglar?
I knew all the time you weren't. The only thing that you steal is hearts.
I wonder if I've stolen yours.
It's always been yours.
Doris, you're a darling.
Soft waltz music till tag.
Children, please remember that I am present.
I'll tell you what we can do. We'll elope. At once. Catch the 12:10 and get to the city in half an hour. I'll take you to my mother's, and in the morning, wedding bells for 2.
Would it be right?
Of course it would. Delays are dangerous. You've got only 5 minutes to catch the train.
I'm ready.
And so am I. Bright, you're all right.
I said that I would straighten things out.
Billy, shaking his hand warmly.
Come over tomorrow morning to our wedding and be my best man.
I'll do it.
Enter Amy from right.
Bright.
Billy and Doris are eloping.
For goodness sakes, isn't it rather sudden?
Not at all. I've been in love with her ever since this afternoon.
You've just time to catch the train.
Doris, you dear.
Kisses her.
Amy, you and Bright be at the house by 10 tomorrow. We want you to help us through.
We'll be there. Give my love to your mother.
Goodbye.
They hurry out left.
Goodbye. If this hasn't been an eventful day, I've never seen one.
Tomorrow will be another. In the morning, we'll go to Doris's wedding.
Red firelight on Amy and Brighton.
And in the evening, we'll have one of our own.
Good night, then. Until tomorrow.
Good night, beloved.
They kiss as the curtain slowly descends. Curtain. End of Act 3. End of The Hoodoo by Walter Ben Hare.